Clerk will call the roll.
Glenn Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Marty Van Ravensway, Commissioner Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitutes a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation this morning will be given by Dr. Jerry Chisholm from the Arlington Heights United Methodist Church. Welcome, sir. It's good to see you again. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Chisholm.
Let us pray. We find your name upon our lips, O God, for you have placed it upon our hearts. However we twist and turn and run to flee from your great love, we sense in our inmost souls that we have no future but the one we know in you. Forgive us for the turn of mind that makes us look on our abundance as a matter of right rather than an evidence of grace. For minds that can think, for hearts that can feel, for hands that can do, we thank thee. For large purposes that call us, for associations and causes that unite us, for grace that restores and forgives, we thank thee. For serious minds that grapple with the questions of our community, and for the good work of this commission, and for this court, we thank you. In a day when the problems that confront us seem more than we can handle, open our eyes to the resources at our command as your children, and give us one thing more, a grateful heart. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Dr. Chisholm, for being here today. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have several announcements for you this morning. As it relates to the agenda, the first one is under the Administrator's section, item 8A5. This concerns change order number 1 to Gilco Contracting. We're going to ask that particular one be held for a week. Also, members of the Court, under Human Resources, item 8F2, this is a request for organizational changes in the IT department. We're going to ask that also be held for a while. Just a couple of announcements also. As it relates to today's session, we are not going to have a closed session today. There's not a need to go into closed. And so what we're going to do, since we go through our regular agenda, we'll ask the court to take about a 5-minute break so that we can begin to set up for the presentations for the architectural and engineering proposers as it relates to the civil courts building. Also, members of the court, I want to remind you that next Monday, the 18th, we have budget hearings, and they start at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we will have your budget books plus the budget letter to you by the end of this week. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of August the 5th.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Under proclamations and resolutions, I guess because we didn't have on the agenda last week your proclamation, even though we may have passed and made a motion, we probably need to go ahead and approve the proclamation for J.D. Johnson Day, and I will move its approval.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion?
Are you going to sing Happy Birthday?
No.
Yeah.
No. My wife has given me very explicit instructions about me singing anywhere,
Excuse me.
especially on camera.
Just for the record, that was birthday number
70.
It was 40 with 30 years experience.
That's good. I'm going to remember that one.
Any other comments that we want to make before we can torture him a little bit more if you like.
I just want to thank the court and everybody involved. I was a little surprised.
That's pretty obvious. I really liked that.
Well, and you can thank your staff. They did a good job on that, and
And Natalie and a lot of others. So
it was. In fact, you got up and left the podium last week a little bit before we got to that point, and you like to have discovered the surprise before you were supposed to have discovered it. They had them down in your office for a while, and they had just moved them out of your office when you decided to leave the podium and head for your office.
Well, I don't know who put some material up here that I needed to read, and I didn't have my glasses, so I went in there to get them, and that was my focus.
Well, it's probably a good thing you didn't have your glasses, because I think the stroller for your grandchild was in that office. But it was great, and I just want to thank everybody who kind of helped, and again, congratulations.
Thank you, Glenn. Thank all of you very much.
And now we'll vote. And the motion passes 4, and Commissioner Johnson's abstaining for his proclamation. The next proclamation, Commissioner Johnson, you have, I believe, a proclamation, Commissioner Johnson?
Yes, if you would read that into the record, please.
You bet. Cover all your bases money 2020 Day. Whereas personal financial education and wealth building is essential for ensuring that Tarrant County residents are prepared to manage money and credit wisely and responsibly, and whereas many Texans will not have enough money to live securely through their lifespan due to poor planning, overspending, and lack of savings, and whereas with the increasing costs of living, many individuals may decrease contributions to personal savings due to lack of seeing the benefit to saving, and whereas the Tarrant County Financial Literacy Coalition, organized as a group dedicated to improving the personal financial literacy of Tarrant County adults and youth through a variety of educational programs, and whereas participation in Money 2020 and other financial management programs will assist in improving financial literacy skills and increase savings, which will contribute to positive changes in our communities. And whereas the Tarrant County Financial Literacy Coalition has planned a Money 2020 savings event, Cover All Your Bases Day, at the Fort Worth Cats home game to bring awareness and encourage families and individuals to build their own safety nets by saving money each month to reach financial goals and be prepared for life events. Now, therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim Friday, August the 15th, as Money 2020 Cover All Your Bases Day in Tarrant County, and encourage all citizens to join in this worthy observance. In witness whereof, we have heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 12th day of August 2008.
I move for its approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
I'd like to ask Marion Ross with AgriLife Extension Service and Catherine Rotter with Tarrant County Credit Union, which, by the way, is an excellent place to save your money and grow good interest. A little plug for our credit union.
I thought I heard that wood clicking out there a few minutes ago. Y'all must have dropped something.
I hope we don't get hit. Thank you for what y'all do, and we appreciate you.
Well, we'll go ahead and distribute the bats first, but I am going to make a comment. I'm going to put my statement out there. If you all use these inappropriately, I will come back and confiscate them.
We are coming up on budget hearings.
Yes, you are.
That's great.
Thank you.
Where's Wilder?
Now remember, I will come and confiscate them. How are your banks filling up? The banks you've gotten the last couple of years? I hope you're saving. I don't know.
You just are.
We're just excited about the event, which really does give us an opportunity to reach out and meet new people. It really has enhanced some of our programming. We have more people attending the financial literacy classes. I'm sure the present-day economy has nothing to do with it, but we do have lots of folks coming, learning, and actually taking skills home and making changes, making life changes. I've heard from people who've attended programs, who've come to the savings event saying, I never thought just saving $100 a month would make a difference in my life. And it really is truly making differences in people's lives. So we appreciate your support. We're hoping that we have enough savings bonds to make it through. They haven't gone into extra innings yet, the times we've been out there, but we're hoping that they do sometimes. So
Thank you all
looking
very
forward to
much
it.
again.
Well, thank you.
Did we vote on that?
We voted. Did you want to make any comments, Catherine?
It would be a landmark event if she didn't.
I wouldn't want to disappoint the judge, that's all. Just once again, as you guys know, the credit union is very, very animate about people learning how to save and about supporting this, and we're very proud and excited to also be involved with the Financial Coalition with Extension. Thank you.
And I really appreciate it. I mean, Catherine, I know, goes around to all of our different facilities and different garages and really helps folks, encourages folks to open the savings accounts and begin saving.
That's right, just $5 a payday. You'll never know what it adds up to. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board members, you have before you the consent agenda with, and I would just remind you of the removal of item 8A5 from the agenda.
That correction, I move approval.
Second.
A motion is second to approve the consent agenda with the exception or with the removal of item 8A5. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have 4 additional items to bring to the court this morning. The first 2 deal with a process that we go through every year. On item number 1, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court take the following actions as it relates to Tarrant County government and the tax rate for tax year 2008. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court propose a tax rate of .02665 per $100 valuation for tax year 2008, and to take a record vote on that. Then also to schedule the public hearings as it relates to this particular tax rate, one to be held on August 26, 2008, the second one on September 9th, 2008, at 10 o'clock in the morning in the Commissioner's courtroom. And the clerk, please show that we give the formal address of this location. This is the outside tax rate, a rate that we will not exceed.
Move approval.
Second. We have motions and second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, members of the court, on item 2, this is a similar request, except it deals with the Tarrant County Hospital District's effective and rollback rates as it relates to tax year 2008 and setting the various public hearings. We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve an order which proposes a maximum tax rate of .230397 per $100 valuation for tax year 2008, and to take that record vote, and also to schedule public hearings for August 26th, 2008 and September 9th, 2008 at 10 o'clock in the Commissioner's courtroom to consider the proposed outside tax rates.
Now, this, again, is the outside tax rate.
That's correct.
And does not necessarily bear any resemblance to the rate that we will end up with.
That's correct. What this is sets the outside and maximum tax rate.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 3, we're requesting that the court approve a resolution which relates to the issuance of tax-exempt Series 2008 hospital revenue bonds by the Tarrant County Cultural Education Facilities Finance Corp., the Scott and White Memorial Hospital and Scott Sherwood and Brent Lee Foundation Project in an amount not to exceed $190 million. 2 comments. First of all, the properties that we're talking about, we've received word from the hospital's general counsel that there is no restrictions that would adversely affect any future of that land, even though that land is not located in Tarrant County. And second of all, the documents also have the attached hub letter that we require.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any discussion?
Just a question, and it's something that just occurred to me after doing years of these deals. Does the Tarrant County Hospital, Tarrant County Cultural Education Facilities Finance Corporation charge a fee for the issuance of this debt? And
Yes.
if so, what happens to the money?
They do pay the county for this action $10,000. It goes into the county's funds, and the funds are used to offset the cost of the outside financial audits of this organization that the county has to pay.
Why so cheap?
At one time, we didn't charge anything, quite frankly, and that was a long time
That's
ago.
not much of an answer.
Well, I mean, and then we began to charge
I
$5,000.
mean, compared to what the Tarrant County Housing Finance Corporation charges, this is the best bargain in the country.
Well, that's the fee that we charge at this time, Commissioner. You know, and that's just a fee that we set in order to cover our costs on the audits.
Maybe one of the things we ought to do is in a meeting sometime in the near future, sit down and have a discussion with that. I see Mr. Brown. Maybe we need to come forward and just talk about that overall and just see what some of our thoughts would be.
Very good. And we'll be able to tell you then how much is in that particular account.
Someone's behind him.
That's, Mr. Brown,
In addition to,
please come forward.
in addition to the 10,000 fee that comes to the county, the Tarrant County Cultural Educational Facilities Finance Corporation charges a $5,000 fee. Those funds also belong to the county. So there's a total.
So maybe I think if we just look at the overall, what is the reserve, what's the balance in that account, what are we doing with those funds, and how
I
is
have
that?
that information, and I can prepare it and give it to the court in writing.
That'd be great.
Okay?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Any
Mr.
other
Brown.
questions?
Any other questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, we could go to item number 4. This is a request by the Public Health Department for an exception to the Tarrant County travel policy as it relates to in-region travel. We're requesting approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Snyder?
The Risk Management Board is recommending the payment of the claim to Ms. Kopinski in the amount listed on your agenda.
Move approval.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Thanks. Ms. Glenn?
Good morning. We only have one item for the court this morning. We're asking that you receive and file the personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Any
You're
discussion?
late today, J.D. You're late today.
I
No,
made
I
it.
wanted to see what she'd do if we didn't do it ahead of time.
I was surprised.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Tina, I would like to see you right after court if I could.
Mr. Beecham?
Your Honor, other members of the court, we have 11 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-134. This is an annual contract for the purchase of our pickup trucks. Recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis, awarding to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique that meet all specifications.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-137. This is an annual contract for the purchase of Class 4 through Class 8 cab and chassis trucks. Recommendation would be to order on a per unit price basis. Again, awarding the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval. Sorry.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 3 is also a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-138. This is an annual contract for the purchase of our vans. Again, a recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis. recommending award to the primary, secondary, and alternate vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. On all of these, are there, I guess these are just the contracts, the price to purchase. That still doesn't prohibit anybody from buying a hybrid, or do we have hybrids priced in here anywhere?
We opened bids yesterday on every hybrid vehicle known to mankind.
Okay.
We don't have the results, obviously, since the bid was just opened at 2 o'clock, but it'll be on the agenda within 2 weeks. So.
Okay. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 4 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-139. This is a new annual contract for the purchase of SUV vehicles. Recommendation again to award on a per unit price basis to the primary, secondary, alternate vendors as shown in your communique.
I thought years ago we developed a policy of using the expression utility vehicles. Move approval.
Second.
I'll second. I was going to comment, but I'm not.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 5 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-150. This is our annual contract for the purchase of a self-propelled reclaimer stabilizer. Recommendation would be to award to Conley Light Nichols of Texas on a per unit price basis.
Move approval. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Yeah, Jack, we talked about this a few minutes ago.
Yes, sir.
It's just, nobody else
No,
builds
sir.
this piece of equipment.
This is all there is.
So,
Any other questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 6 is also a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-153. This is our annual contract for sign, post, and anchor material. Recommendation would be to award on a per unit price basis to Allied Tube and Conduit Corporation.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second.
There's nobody in Texas that makes that product?
Not that wants to bid on it.
I guess that's an Illinois kind of
Yes,
deal?
sir.
Both bidders from somewhere up there.
Any other questions?
No.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 7 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-152. This is our annual contract for lawn maintenance. Recommendation will be to award on a per unit price basis to the Ewing Landscape Company.
Is this a new contract?
No, sir, it is not.
So where in the contract cycle does this renewal fall?
I'm not sure if I understand the question. The expenditures are
If
about...
it's a 5-year deal, what year are we in?
Well, this is a new new, not a new, first year for this contract. Not a new contract, but the first year. And you're asking for renewal options that are available with the award also?
Yeah.
2 renewal options are available.
How can it be the first year of a contract and not be a new contract?
What makes you think it's not a new contract? I mean, it's an annual contract.
New term. New
Same
term.
company.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I'm sorry.
New to me means we've never done it before. New term. Yes, the first year of the term for this contract.
All right.
So yes, it is a new contract for a service that we've always contracted for.
No, I'm about to get confused.
Okay, that's fine. Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Motion passes unanimously.
Number 8 is a bid award recommendation for RFP number 2008-162. This is an RFP for the fabrication and purchase of election equipment carriers. Recommendation would be to award to a company called Election Works.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Number 9 is another bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-157. This is a bid for graphics and interior signage for the Plaza Building, Phase 2. Recommendation would be to award the low bidder, Lassiter Industries, in the amount of $57,260.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 10 is an item in regards to bid number 2006-187. This is our annual contract for emulsions. We are recommending cancellation of the previous contract award to SEM Materials. We're seeking permission to rebid with revised specifications and seeking temporary exemption from 262024, the local government code, to let us satisfy those requirements for about 45 days until we have another contract in place.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
And our last item is an item in regards to bid number 2008-129. This is an annual contract for television equipment and supplies. We are recommending rejection of the bids that we received and seeking permission to purchase from the Texas Cooperative Purchasing Network contract with Best Buy, which will offer the county a discount of 15% over 25 different product lines.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fickus, I believe you have a couple of interlocal agreements.
Yes, sir, we
An
do.
interlocal agreement.
This is with City of Fort Worth. This is to rebuild roads, Wagley Robinson Road from Bonds Ranch Road to just north of the Savannah Estates, 7,250 feet. The other one is Harmon Road. We have two parts of it. First one is from 287 to south of Heritage Trace Parkway, and that's 4,600 feet. And Harmon Road from Golden Triangle Boulevard north, 1,000 feet.
Second.
Move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any appointments? There being none, then you have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius, any briefing items?
None at this time, Your Honor.
Then we will take a short break, and then we'll be back in here in about, why don't we make it about 10:40?
Tina.
And we'll start with the presentations.
Your Honor, we can now move to the workshop piece, a part of the agenda. Mr. Phillips is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We're going to eat while you're doing this.
Plus, I figured it's going to bring the other two. I was hoping that my striking of the gavel would bring the other two back. I think they'll be here shortly. So go ahead.
Judge, staff is requesting that the Commissioners Court hear presentations from and start evaluation of 5 architectural engineering firms that are interested in the 2006 Capital Improvement Program Civil Courts Building Project. And the RFQ we sent out did include the possible future renovation of the Justice Center at 401 West Belknap. Let me briefly go over what the civil court...
As an add option.
At your discretion, we can do them concurrently or wait a little farther till we get along with design of the civil courts building and come along and do the Justice Center at that time, or we can have the same firm do it, separate firms do it that are on the list, or do a complete RFQ. But the option is there. When we did the RFQ, the Justice Center is included for your option to do it at the same time or later. The Civil Courts building is included in the Capital Improvement Project. As I know it today, is about a 200,000 square foot building, which is about 20% smaller than our family courts facility. It'll be a 5-level building on Block 11, downtown Fort Worth. It'll house 12 district court suites, and 2 of those 12 would be for future expansion, which are not assigned now. Also would have a mega courtroom, which is a large trial room for multi-litigant trials. Also would have support areas such as district clerk and possibly jury services, and also some secured parking in the basement. I've asked each of the 5 firms to discuss the civil courts facility design experience and also touch on their overall court design experience. They've been instructed to hold their presentations to 20 minutes or less, a formal presentation each with a 10 minutes question and answer after, and we'll have a short break between firms so they can set up. I do have an evaluation sheet for you to fill out today or this week, and the way this evaluation sheet is ranked, the highest number would be the firm you like the best. Next week we will have on the court agenda.
You go back and forth on this just to confuse us.
Yes, we do. When we have,
you have somewhere written on a wall, okay, the next time it's the lowest, this time it's the highest?
when we have this many, we do it this way for whatever reason. We do it this way, yes, we do. And we did have 5. Only 5 firms submitted, Judge, and we all of these firms have significant court design experience. So that's why there's so many this time.
Just so I'm clear, the firm I like best gets a 5.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And we'll be back next week to ask for permission to negotiate with that top-ranked firm.
All right.
Now I'd like to introduce Randy Gideon with Gideon Toll.
Can I ask a couple other questions? I know we have kind of set up an advisory committee, and the 12 district courts, the 1 mega court, district clerk, secure parking. Again, what we've tried to do in that committee is give them some ability to, and we've tried to pick the users, the various users of that building, and hopefully they'll be involved much as we did in the family law, which I think ended up being a very successful building and project. But have we totally ruled out moving the county court at law or moving the Court of Appeals, or and I'm assuming that somewhere maybe there would be no reason, and I guess there wouldn't be based upon the fact that it's just district courts, there'd be no reason to have any kind of district attorney's space in that civil courts building.
We will, as soon as we select an architectural firm, we will discuss with the court what program elements you'd like to include. at least look at. We don't have to, in the final project, we don't have to include them all, but at the point, maybe there's a group you'd like to include, be the county court at law. Possibly, a few years ago, we talked about the law library possibly moving, probate courts possibly, and of course, Court of Appeals. So we'll be glad to look at all those program elements for you at that time.
Your Honor, nothing is off the table at this time. Nothing is
Okay.
at the table at this time.
Thank you.
Randy?
Good morning, Your Honor, Commissioners. Harking back to the invocation, we are grateful to be here this morning. Thank you for having us. We're going to present a brief recap of our qualifications for you all, introduce our team, and give you the information that we hope you need to select Gideon Toll and our team as the best team for this project. We'll demonstrate that we're most qualified because, one, we can technically perform the services needed to do this project. Two, we have the capacity and the management approach to be successful in this project. And three, our team knowledge of the project will benefit the county in time and in dollars saved for the taxpayers by utilizing that knowledge. First, I'd like to introduce our team members that are here today. They're listed on the slide that you have before you, but I am Randy Gideon with Gideon Toll, and we'll be working on the project. In order, not in order on the slide, but in order in the chairs out here, we have Rich, that you see on the list. There's one of our consultants, Michael Bennett, one of my partners, Rick Davidson, Mark Dabney, Brian Richards, Rudy Garcia, and Renee Avila. And then, of course, Kevin Crumpler. Most of you all know Kevin, and he is with Gideon Toll as well. These represent a staff of senior leadership of these firms that shows our commitment to the project and how important this project is to Tarrant County. All of these individuals that have worked on the project previously have had interaction and experience with the judges, their staffs, the district clerk, the facilities folks, and the other various users that went through the first rounds of programming on.
Can I get you to go back one slide for a second?
Yes, sir.
If you would, I'm assuming that the pictures you show here are things that you've done?
Our
Or
team has
somebody's
done. Yes, sir. That's
What
a courts
particular-
building for that Rich worked on.
And where is that?
Rich? Oh,
Okay.
The
okay.
one that we're looking at up here?
It's a federal court building.
And since we're on this slide, I see Jaster Quintanilla,
Yes, sir.
structural engineers.
Yes,
They
sir.
are a LEED certified firm.
Yes, sir.
Great.
They'll be doing our structural engineering. I'll talk about them in just a minute. As you can see, we've assembled a team where the key members have experience on the highly successful Family Law Center project. And, everybody that is on this team represented today was on the Family Law Center with the exception of Jaster Quintanilla. And Jaster Quintanilla is somebody that we've developed an ongoing relationship with over the years since that project. And they will be responsible for the structural engineering on the project. We did it the last time, Gideon Toll, with the help of a woman-owned firm, a small firm that struggled a little bit, frankly. Jaster Quintanilla is an excellent, happens to be a minority-owned firm as well, and they will be responsible for the design on this. It'd be a good time to say that we're committed to the goals of Tarrant County for minority and women-owned businesses, and Lopez Garcia, as you can see here, and Jaster Quintanilla both are minority firms, and also Lopez Garcia has women ownership, and both of them have significant roles in this project. The previously approved program document and court set design that was done as we did the Family Law Center for the civil project was led by Gideon Toll and by Peter Rich, who we saw earlier, and Rick Davidson. So Peter and Rick led that interview process and needs assessment the last time. With over 60 employees in our own office, Gideon Toll has assembled an available team of architects and interior designers that have just come off of a large public project that we've done, and we have people available to do this project. We've also added Michael Bennett, who led that team and is one of my principal partners in the firm, as a design resource and additional management capability on this project. You can see on the org chart also that we've added some senior staff folks at the management level, Mark being one of those, some other interiors folks, in order to supplement that team as well, to support us in the team organization. Speaking about the design and the ability to make this building taller or smaller, if you all remember, it was required when we were looking at, we did a block search of 10, 11, and the building, where the building's set now, when we did the Family Law Center. One of our concerns was on Block 10 that the building was so close to the historic courthouse, we tried to cut back and it changed the footprint. We ended up with a full block footprint, but moving it back one block gives us more open space between the historic courthouse and this building, and allows us maybe to go additional height if the county so chooses to add some programming without having as much impact on the view quarters coming up Belknap. And that's one of the things about this. Really, our approach to the design of this project is informed by our experience in this neighborhood here. I don't think anybody else has as much experience on the county campus, but particularly working in this part of the campus than Gideon Toll. We know that this building has to address its context, its neighbors. This is an organization of county buildings, not just a single building. It's a campus of buildings, and it's in a larger complex. But this building has to be sympathetic to its neighbors, including the other county buildings, the Family Law Center, but it has to have an orientation addressing the historic courthouse across that potential plaza space that will be immediately to the west of it. The design and scale, of course, should respect the views of that historic center piece as it becomes really the center of the county campus. As you approach it from the east on Belknap, moving it back one block actually helps that, which would allow us to have that additional height I was speaking about earlier. There's also some concern, of course, as we began to put these in place, that we address the pedestrian movement along Belknap and Weatherford. We have a considerable amount of traffic of attorneys and jurors and others that work on the county campus, and how they move along among these various county facilities, and of course parking. One of the serendipitous things that happened by moving this to the east also is the fact that it put it directly across from the parking structure. And as you all remember, we discussed, we were looking at both projects together of putting the parking structure between those, which was a really reasonable idea at the time, and it worked out that this works well, having civil courts directly across from the parking.
Is that parking structure actually large enough to serve both those facilities and the county employees who currently park there?
Well, that's one of those questions of it could always be bigger. I think the utilization of that garage probably is pretty intense at peak times, but I think for the most part it will continue to handle it. Now, it may require the county to shuffle some things around, but I still think that we've got some capacity to depend on use times. Of course, you know there was also an agreement for it to be available on nights and weekends with the city, which
absolutely.
This becomes even right.
It's during the day that
exactly.
I suspect that a problem is going to develop.
I think it will. When we looked at it, though, we maximized what we could get for our budget at that time in terms of spaces, and we actually increased the number, I think, from the original programmed amount, the very original one, as we went through the project. And as you know, we got a very good deal on those projects in terms of the cost. And I think it'll hold up, but eventually there's always going to be challenges for parking downtown.
That lot immediately to the north.
Yes, sir.
That's scheduled to be surface parking for TCC?
Immediately north is part of the TCC project. Part of it is surface parking immediately to the east of the two buildings that are there now. That immediately to the north. Isn't that right, Michael?
And there would be no thought of that being anything more than a surface. I mean, you could put a structured parking area in there from that.
You could. It would, as far as the location.
Not necessarily want the bluff
right.
Parking lots.
There is circulation that you could get off of Belknap and circulate into a garage there, and physically, I think there's enough size there to put a garage in there.
Would you envision any parking under this building?
Under this building, it will have basement secure parking and access underneath. Yes, sir. Also, on the there's some unique site characteristics to this that which we're aware. Most of the utilities we've worked on, many of them have been put in. There are some communications utilities, and the power grid has to be extended to this site. That was part of an agreement with our neighbors on this and still has to be completed, but Rudy has been involved in all those, in the entire utility situation around the site, and we're very familiar with that. Juror parking, circulation, the court system users, both the frequent and infrequent, become more of a challenge because of trying to find their way to parking and find out where they're going. Just when you walk around the campus, you have people ask questions all the time about where different things are. Traffic volumes, of course, on Belknap and Weatherford dictate that we move service to the north-south streets in order to get it off of the busy streets. And then if you have an orientation to the historic courthouse, of course, service then is going to want to be probably on the other side of the building. So it begins to narrow very quickly where we can get our service to the basement and entrance and exit from the basement of the building. Our knowledge of the program requirements and the judicial preferences that we worked on in the programming previously will allow our team to quickly revisit critical issues such as which elements we want to put in, how many floors, where the floors are stacked, which users use the floor the most, how attorneys circulate, those types of issues. And of course, there's one that we will probably revisit that might be a little different for civil. Now, some things have changed, staff has changed, but the internal security question, and those are things that we've looked at previously and have some options as we move forward to the way it was initially laid out. But all these things will have to be done in a collaborative effort, as somebody said earlier, with the user groups and the advisory committee, and we've worked with many of those folks in the past. It'll also allow us to, going through this, to make some determinations about the space vacated in the existing Justice Center and what's going to happen with it. And of course, they'll probably be much more like the facility over there just because the footprint is set. It'll be more of a shuffling of space than it will be a new opportunity to work on the space. The project design will be directed by senior staff throughout the project, working with the leadership group of the county, the advisory committee, and the users. And it'll be guided by our broad base of experience that we had from the previous design effort. Previous needs assessments and data gathering sessions provide our team members an insight that will translate definitely into time savings in design and construction, and therefore savings in programming and dollars for the county. The GT team has an extensive database of information that has been approved previously by the civil judges. As we worked with them, they had looked and approved a court. It was a little bit of a compromise between family and civil. We may want to revisit that, but it mainly had to do with well size and issues like that we could revisit and see how that works on the site, but we'd actually done a layout that satisfied them and had been approved. That would be a wonderful, at least a point of beginning to accelerate the design process and begin to have discussions about how things may or may not have changed since that time. But we will be able to quickly move to understanding any impacts of that on that type of layout and accelerate the design process and determine which pieces the county determine are necessary to insert into the program or to revise that were done previously. Standard courtroom designs developed and approved by the civil courts will yield benefits for Tarrant County because we can immediately begin to assess the pluses and minuses based on what we looked at in terms of cost. For the most part, as closely as we can stay to the court layouts that we had agreed on previously, they reflect generally what we have in the Family Law Center. There'll be some savings in the way they're maintained, same fixture, furnishings, equipment, things fit the same, things are maintained the same. There's some benefit to that to the county long-term maintenance of the project. The courtroom for the criminal course trials in the existing facility may follow more closely with the current courtrooms with some modifications and improvements that the judges want to make over there as we begin to revisit those. The Gideon Toll approach will be focused on creating an efficient and timeless building. I'm going to let Michael talk just a little bit about that.
Good morning. I just want to talk briefly about our approach to sustainability with the project and making this a lead project. And now that's an approach that the county has undertaken, and we think this building could be a very good signal to send out as your approach to building green and building sustainably. What our team has done is taken a quick look, and I apologize, it's a little bit hard to read on that slide. It might be easier in your handout. But this is the lead point system that achieves a lead project for you. And what we've done is gone through and just done an initial check of the things that we think would make sense. One of our approaches to sustainability is to be pragmatic, because you could be very, very extreme in it, but we don't think that that is the approach to take. We've looked at points that are attainable, points that achieve things for the county, both in savings and operations costs and environmental positive effects. And that's what this represents. And this would get you a gold certification, which is a very good certification. It's 45 points, which is in the middle of the gold certification range, and something that we think is certainly achievable. Depending on budget and things like that, and as we get into the details of this, we might not be able to get all those points, but we'd still be in a position, we think, to get you a gold certification. But it's something that we as a team, we have 15 LEED certified professionals among our architects and engineers. We as a team have done LEED projects together. It seems like almost every project that we do anymore has some sustainability component to it, whether it's a LEED certified project or not. So it's something we're philosophically we believe in, and something we're very comfortable in doing, and we look forward to working with you all and going through the process and seeing what makes sense for your operations and what makes sense for the county to do. Thank you very much.
Currently, we have a number of sustainability efforts going on, public sustainability efforts. We're doing the Tarrant Regional Water District's new Technology and Operations Center. It will be LEED certified. We're doing Founders Plaza in Arlington, which is the Levitt Pavilion and the park, and it is also going to be a LEED project. We've worked with our clients that want to achieve some type of sustainability level but don't want the expense of achieving one level or another. But we kind of create a sustainability report card with our clients and can determine as a team what we want to achieve and help in documentation and achieving those sustainability goals. Ultimately, any project is only a success if the client says it is a success and the users say it's successful. And we believe this is another reason to select Gideon Toll. The Family Law Center and its team members have received a tremendous amount of recognition in a number of publications and received a number of awards for the project. And we're really proud of that, mainly for our client, that we can get a very reasonably cost-wise project done in the time frame it was done in and still achieve the recognition it's achieved for being a very successful project. We hear nothing but positive things. Finally, our team strengths, I want to go over very quickly, is that we've assembled a Fort Worth-based team with the majority of the services being performed in Tarrant County. The Gideon Toll office is a 10-minute walk from the site, and we've accomplished dozens of downtown successful projects in our history, and particularly on this campus of buildings. Familiarity with the city goals for downtown design and working through the design review board approval process downtown is something that we feel our experience will benefit the county and be a distinct advantage to the project. Our team is committed to the county's sustainability goals, as we said earlier, and it's something that we feel like is very achievable as a part of this project. And of course, our firm and other firms that are on this team are firms who know Tarrant County and more particularly this specific project from our past experience. While this layout diagram that you see before you demonstrates our knowledge of the project, we have discussed the logic behind its creation is really the resource that the county will be able to rely on to provide the benefits that we've talked about with our experience. Broader contextual understanding is brought to the project by our team and having gone through this process previously. Our interviews with judges in the existing facility previously also provide a base of understanding of the issues of the remodel of the Criminal Justice Center and a point of beginning to begin discussions about where we might revisit that programming that was done previously. Additionally, we have cost models and data on buildings, skins, courtrooms, fixtures, furnishings, and equipment to begin immediately assessing impacts of various elements of the design as it develops, and we can update those to today's cost and begin to see where the cost differences might be in what we did in the previous work and what's happening today. Certain bid packages could even be updated and reissued to update the cost information early in the process, just to go out to the marketplace with the construction manager and begin to see what has happened to the cost, because they're very similar to what we did previously, and we have the data from the previous work to work on. We believe that utilizing the Gideon Toll team
experience can yield really a tremendous amount of time savings during design, but also our cost analysis data and bid packaging can save time in the value engineering process, which we inevitably go through, and bidding and construction. And all this relates back to dollars for the taxpayers. Every month we save in design equals a month saved in the continuum for construction, and we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings for each month, or for a collection of months that we save. Certainly tens of thousands and maybe 100,000 per month, depending on the escalation that we have based on the immediate past. Relevant projects, the Civil Courts project was initially considered as a part of the Family Law Center and was developed as part of that project, the schematic design. The success of that project, I think, speaks for itself. Gideon Toll has recent downtown experience and working on design issues in downtown, particularly with the Downtown Design Review Board. Buildings such as Caney Hangar, which is obviously a different kind of building, but had many issues having to do with circulation, crossing the street, other things that DDRB wanted to look at. Our downtown commissions of recent months have provided us the opportunity to work on a number of projects in various architectural styles and materials, including more traditional building forms, not unlike the Family Law Center, like the Casaria building shown in this slide at 5th and Commerce. And we see this building being akin to the Family Law Center, being a building that's sympathetic to its neighbors but has its own particular style. Our courts projects since Family Law, working with Peter Rich and Rick Davidson, provide the Gideon Toll team with current thinking on courts facilities, and I think will inform and refresh our review of the data that we had presented previously, and working with the judges can give them some new ideas and also apply that thinking to their new staffing and operational requirements. Finally, I think I would like to wrap up with saying why the Gideon Toll team. One, we have the team with the experience proven with the, I think, a very first-rate family at the Family Law Center, of which this was a part of that work initially. We have probably more experience in downtown Fort Worth than any other firm that I could imagine presenting against. We have plans and data on the shelves that could be reviewed, modified, and accelerate the design process. We have cost analysis that could become the base of benchmarking the project through from the very early stages, which will help the entire team. And then finally, I believe that we provide team certainty and a cost reality that the county could rely on for a successful project.
Randy?
Yes, sir.
What are you going to do with those two angels over on the old Civil Courts building?
Not part of this project.
Angels.
You have those big lamps?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I don't know. We could see what we could do with them. They're awfully big. They might be taller than a 4-story building. They might stick up.
Okay.
Questions?
Just a comment, and that is that I consider this project to be crucial to establishing a quality northeast corner of our county campus. There is some uncertainty as to what's going to go on there, because we don't know what Tarrant County College is going to do. There's an intervening piece of land which, although we have expressed an interest in acquiring at some point, we don't know what's going to happen with it either. So this building will be crucial in establishing an eastern boundary for our county campus. In my view, it should coordinate with, but not look like, the Family Law Center. It should be the next step in thought and creativity from the Family Law Center. as the Family Law Center is a step or two above the creativity of the old courthouse. I don't want sameness, I guess is my point.
Well, Commissioner, we would not present sameness. We want this building to be unique, but not to dominate the historic courthouse. We have some opportunities and some challenges with this building that we didn't have with the Family Law Center. One, the Family Law Center is addressed on Weatherford, which faces north, as we all know, but it's a different orientation. If we face the historic courthouse, then this building will really be viewed from 4 primary sides, because coming in on Belknap, you're going to see the east face. You're going to pass it on Weatherford and Belknap, and it'll be hopefully facing across some type of public space to the historic courthouse, which should be the primary entrance orientation. So we'll have an opportunity to have this building have 4 sides, and I think we've got some great ideas about how to handle that challenge of the service on the east side and make this building very unique. It won't be the same building, but it will be respectful of the Family Law Center.
Exactly.
Randy, I might have a little different opinion, but I think it's very important that this building complement the old courthouse. Obviously, it doesn't need to distract away from the Family Law Center, but it certainly needs to complement the old courthouse. And I think that's an important feature, not only on the exterior, but the interior. And I love the interior of the Family Law Center, and it's, obviously works very well, but from an exterior standpoint, I would certainly like.
Thank you.
I don't want a building built like this building.
Right.
Okay.
And we're very, we agree with you on that. I think there's some opportunities with, like on the Family Law Center, that becomes a sympathetic neighbor to the historic courthouse, but does not try to overpower it with its detailing. And yet the materials that come from that historic architectural palette are really good materials in terms of maintaining. As you all, we went through a lot of cost looking at deciding how much granite we wanted to use and how much brick versus some other material that was less costly. And I think we ended up
concrete.
Well, we looked at a number of schemes, but I tell you, we end up making the correct choice for this building, because not only do I think it looks appropriate for the architectural vocabulary, but it's going to, I think, be a 100-year building for the county, in terms of the flooring and all those decisions. And that's part of that cost review we'll have to do on this, because we're not going to get this building for what we got that one for, unfortunately.
Any other questions or comments? Randy, thank you.
Thank you very much. We really do appreciate it.
Your Honor, we could take a 3 to 5 minute break.
Sit down.
and Richard Williams, principal and project manager for your job. We also have Fran McCune here, who's operating the technical stuff and helped us put together our short presentation today. She's our marketing coordinator. This is a very significant project for GSBS Architects. It's significant because we're invested in this community and we care about this project. Along with this principal group, which will start this project and finish with this project at the completion of the construction and ribbon cutting, and then a year later, when we have a post-occupancy walkthrough of this building to talk about what works best and what doesn't work so well, we're going to be around for the next 3 or 4 years with you all. Along with our staff of 24 local professionals, architects, intern architects, landscape architects, interior designers, and planners, and our key consultants, Summit Consultant and Jaster Quintanilla, we will endeavor to give you the best project that we can within your budget. Judge and Commissioners, 23 of our 24 local employees reside in the county of Tarrant County. And we represent every precinct of the county with our employees. You're going to listen today to 5 very qualified firms who are technically competent to do this work. What sets us apart is, number one, we're going to help you define what your priorities are and what your vision is for this project. We're going to meet initially with your 18-person advisory committee to set those priorities, and then every design decision we make will come back to check that, to make sure we're on track with what those priorities are and what your vision is for this building. Number two, we're going to listen to you, and then more importantly, we're going to collaborate with you to give you the best project that we can. And then finally, we're going to apply the 4 mores. That's what you currently see on your screen. We call that the 4 mores. We're going to apply those to design your building. And we think that's what makes us best for this project. The 4 mores are more valuable, more aesthetic, more livable, and more responsible. And the first more is more valuable. In January, we completed the design and construction of the Great Wolf Lodge in Grapevine. This $100 million project started 3.5 years ago with the design phases of this very complicated project, which involves an indoor environment for pool, lobby and meeting rooms, and 600 hotel rooms. Richard Williams has spent the last 3.5 years of his life as the project manager on this project, and he's going to describe this in a little more detail.
Yeah, Great Wolf Resorts asked us to design a new lodge that broke away from the sprawling, low-rise wood construction that they were so used to. They wanted something that was better, something different, and something more valuable. And if that wasn't enough, they wanted a building that was designed and built in under 2 years. So we designed a building that was more vertical with a smaller footprint that saved them valuable construction time and saved them money. We utilized a post-tension concrete structural system that maximized the efficiency of the building. And we integrated more advanced HVAC and energy management systems that save them in long-term operating costs. They also asked us to build a building that would withstand the extreme environment of an indoor water park. So we asked ourselves, after looking at their existing buildings, we asked ourselves, how can we do it better? And the first thing we did was simplify the roof system. We used, instead of using steel, we used wood structural components that naturally resist corrosion. And instead of building the exterior walls out of gypsum board or sheetrock, we built them out of 9-inch thick concrete tilt-up walls that not only were more durable, but could allowed the building to be built much faster.
What Richard's talking about is a process of taking our experience
and our knowledge and applying it to a project in an innovative way. And in fact, during today's presentation, you're going to see a number of innovative projects, one-time advancement of concepts, kinds of projects that exhibit this application of experience in creating innovation. And specifically, if you drill the more valuable point down to a courts application, it's important to talk a little bit about what our courts experience is. As a firm, we have more than 25 years of history working on courts projects. Personally, I've been working on them for 20 years. And there's a great deal of breadth and depth of that experience. As simple as court clerk counter remodels and as complicated as this 14 courtroom set building you see on the screen now. It also involves courtrooms in their simplest and in their broadest scale. We've worked on justice court facilities for municipalities, and we've worked on federal court projects for the GSA. And I think maybe the best experience we've had, although all of those things are very valuable to us, has been the drafting of a facility court standard for the state of Utah, which we've revised and refined over the course of 15 years 3 times. So we have been brought in to develop a standard approach to courtroom design and then to apply that consistently and to refine that model as time has gone on. That experience, I think, was demonstrated pretty nicely about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years ago, when the GSA invited us in to provide some value engineering services to help out one of their architects who had a federal court project that was some $20 million over budget. And what we were hired for was our experience in creating value and function in the court facility and then eliminating the fluff and the things that weren't necessary to the operational characteristics of that building. Value is important. So is aesthetic. It's very important that the building look right, and acknowledging that beauty is in the eye of the beholder. When we consider what we have to work with for this project and its aesthetic, context and significance of this building in its milieu are going to be paramount importance.
Yeah, a few years ago, the city of Watauga asked us to design a new city hall for them, and that's what you see on the screen. They wanted a building that created a new civic identity. Now, the project had a fairly modest budget, but I think you can see that even with that modest budget, it has a real sense of presence. This is the interior of the council chambers. It also serves as a municipal court. And again, with that modest budget, I think it shows that we can create a functional, more attractive, more aesthetic space.
Tom spoke of collaboration. This is a key in this aesthetic world. We're not the kind of guys that are going to roll in and dictate to you what a building needs to look like. We're going to work with the community, with your team, to develop an appropriate design, both functionally and aesthetically. And court buildings are very important in that regard because they are symbolic, probably as symbolic as any building we have the opportunity to design. They demonstrate the importance of one of the 3 branches of government. They carry with them a very important dignity, a presence on the site. You need to be prepared as you approach the building for the proceedings that you're about to be a participant in. And so the scale of the building, it's the materials that are used, its context on the site. You happen to be looking at a modern building on the Capitol complex in Salt Lake City. It's designed to sit in context with the state capitol building of Utah. But the material choices of a court building, the scale of that court building when you approach it, its setback from the street, its relationship, all prepare people for proper interaction with the courts and what you as a county are saying about this part of your government responsibility. The more livability factor is really one of functionality and integrating the function and making it optimize as much as possible. And this is a place where courts are particularly tricky in their resolution. There are thousands of design decisions that go into the design of a good courtroom that are not self-evident, and you wouldn't even know they've been made or whether they've been made properly without having done a great number of them and been through it and seen the experience. You're looking here at a courtroom that is fully accessible. And that's a requirement now that didn't used to be in place of the building code, but every workstation, every location in that courtroom can be accessed with a wheelchair. And in fact, all of those pathways and all of that access is accomplished the same way, by the same paths as somebody that's walking in that courtroom. And so there's an appropriateness, dignity to accomplishing that accessibility and solving it in the courtroom setting and making that work well for the courts and also work well for its participants. When we undertake to design these courtrooms, it would be very simple, again, based on our experience, to grab one off the shelf. Here's a courtroom for you. This will work fine. But that's not going to give you the most functional, most livable solution. We will work with your staff to determine the exact equipment that they use for preserving the record. We will work with them to see which computers, which workstations, which flat panels need to be on the desktop. And all of those things influence the design of the bench, the design of the well, and the design of the gallery space. And the sight lines that are resulting from those design decisions have to be worked out independently and separately every time we endeavor to design a courtroom. And they're different every time because every jurisdiction practices a little bit differently, has different function, works together a little bit differently. Another important design criteria in the livability of court facilities is the requirement for security. We live in a day and age when we need to have significant security overlays, cameras, magnetometers, X-ray machines. But it's really of critical importance that when you approach the building, when you approach this process of court, that you not be confronted with the security measures that are in place. We shouldn't be saying to our citizens, as soon as you're through the magnetometer and through the X-ray machine, you're safe to go into court. We should be presenting a face that says, yes, we're providing appropriate security, but we're not afraid of you as a citizenry. There are a lot of conceptual notions, functional relationships within the design of the court facility that are important to talk about. As I said, there are thousands of details that could be considered. And functional appropriateness is important, but there are also dollars and cents reasons to make some of these decisions. And just as an example, I'm going to talk briefly about a jury box, where there are many, many details into making a jury box right. Maybe the most important one is the jury seating. Jury seating, we have found, needs to have the ability, it has to be fixed, that's one important thing, but it also needs to be able to rotate, swivel, and it also needs to be able to tilt. If you think about your job as a juror, sitting there 4, 6, 8 hours at a stretch, without that ability, your attention span goes down. If your attention span goes down, then you're no longer paying attention. As a result, a savvy attorney will recognize that and will have a mistrial or a hung jury on our hands. The cost to the taxpayers, sometimes to the tune of millions of dollars in mistrial, retrial, those kinds of fees. So the careful detailing of these elements, ensuring that the sight lines and the details are appropriate, is of critical importance in the design of these facilities. The last more is responsibility. Really, there are three topics in responsibility, and they relate to what we think is a unique approach to this. At GSBS Architects, we consider ourselves fiduciaries of your resources, financial, time, and environmental resources. The project that's up on the screen before you that was the venue for speed skating, the Winter Olympic Games of 2002, it is a pretty good representation of how we've accomplished all three of those responsibilities to a very high level. As you can see, it's a relatively iconic building, very significant, easy to recognize. The building that was built for the prior Olympics to house those venues cost $300 million. This project cost $25 million. And we accomplished that by integrating all of the aspects of the design, looking collaboratively at what was required, and then finding what turned out to be a structural system that was more expensive, but a building envelope that was less. It also had to be delivered on a schedule. It was very tight in time for test events for the Winter Games. And then lastly, and I think of particular importance to this commission, given the recent articles in the newspaper, this building was one of the first 8 buildings to receive a LEED certification by the U.S. Green Building Council. GSBS participated in the pilot program. This goes back to 1998, 10 years ago. This is well before sustainability was on most people's radar. And we worked with the U.S. Green Building Council. My partner, David Brems, was a key player in that movement. And this building received that early certification. And we helped develop what has become the standard for green building certification. The building that's on the screen now is the Museum of Natural History. It'll be rated at the highest current level of LEED accreditation possible, platinum rating. It's in design. It'll be completed in about 18 months. And many of our clients who are in a progressive mode now are searching for zero carbon footprint buildings, which is beyond what LEED has to offer. So what we're talking about here is not so much a measuring system or how many LEED buildings we've done or any of those kinds of things, but really an attitude towards sustainable, environmentally responsible design. And again, if we drill that down to these courtroom facilities or court buildings, back to our project in West Jordan, this is a project where the owner was not all that interested in LEED rating per se, but it incorporates everything that we would talk about and we would employ in a building for you. Happens to use ground source heat pumps as a means of heating and cooling the building. It has occupancy sensors. It has indirect lighting. There's daylight in virtually all the spaces except the secure holding. It has a number of sustainable features. Also of importance, again, all 3 of the responsibilities are taken care of. We built that project for $145 a square foot. 18 months later, that same project is going for $250. And it was delivered in a 15-month time schedule from the beginning of design to the completion of the construction contract. And that was necessitated by the client requesting that we they sold their old building and wanted to move into this one before they had to pay rent on the old building. So responsibility, whether it's financial, time schedule, or environmental, is something we take very, very seriously.
Before you leave the podium, sir, would you please explain to me, I try to always learn something during these presentations, what is a zero carbon footprint building?
Zero carbon footprint building is the notion that the building in its design, construction, and lifetime contributes no carbon to the environment. So the burning of, say, a tank of gas puts out a certain amount of carbon through your tailpipe. Generation of electricity puts a certain amount of carbon into the environment. So zero carbon footprint buildings are endeavoring primarily through renewable energy initiatives to give back more than they take out. Obviously, construction uses carbon. We're going to use carbon to make steel. We're going to use carbon in some respect. Most of the zero carbon buildings are looking to use alternative energy, solar power, wind power, geothermal, to give something back to the grid, to contribute back.
Maybe having a green roof.
Green roofs are very popular. This building has a green roof. And that reduces the output, and then you're contributing the CO2 back to the roof. So that's the future.
I didn't mean to take up
no, that's fine.
part of your 20-minute presentation, but
Judge Whitley and Commissioners, in closing this up, so you can get to your question and answer and on to your next interviews, I just want to close with a couple of things. First of all, if you want a firm that has courts experience, which I think you've seen, and a firm who will listen to you, collaborate with you and your colleagues, and provide solutions that are to your best benefit and to the citizens of Tarrant County, then we're the firm you should hire. If you want a truly local firm, 23 of our 24 staff members in Tarrant County, our firm in Tarrant County, then you should hire our firm. And if you want a firm who understands sustainability from the core, back when it wasn't popular and is pushing that envelope today, where that environmental responsibility is really part of our firm's DNA, then you should hire us. And finally, if you want a firm who will make your building more valuable, more aesthetic, more livable, and more responsible, then you should hire us. You should choose us and hire GSBS Architects. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Any questions?
Have y'all done anything in downtown Fort Worth? It's a rather peculiar environment.
Mr. Brooks, we have not in downtown Fort Worth. We have done projects as a firm, though, in urban environments.
Anything else? Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll be back at 12.
Yeah.
Break time?
12 o'clock.
You're going to give us
LBL. But just a brief reminder, we've designed a number of significant projects here in Tarrant County. James Bowie High School, some 320,000 square feet. Richland Hills Church of Christ, UTA Fine Arts Building, and Arlington Memorial Hospital, where we've designed over 1 million square feet since 1967. The point being that we've designed, we have long-term relationships with clients that think long-term. We're based right here in Tarrant County, have been here since 1965. We have a good working relationship with Tarrant County. We actually designed the original Southeast Sub-Courthouse in 1978 and then added to it in 1980, but more recently, we've worked with the county on the new Tarrant County Sub-Courthouse in Arlington, which is pictured here and just opened. We're also working on the Northwest Sub-Courthouse and have done some other projects in the county as well. We're real excited about the project, but we knew the county was going to need a great team for this a project of this magnitude. So we looked for the very best team members that we could team up with. And so first we looked for the firm with a significant court resume. We found HDR has perhaps the longest court resume, certainly one of the leading court design firms in the nation, but most importantly, the people that actually are experts in court design are stationed in the Dallas office, so they're very close at hand, as opposed to having to go out of state for that expertise. LBL Architects would be serving as associate architect, assisting HDR as the prime architect, and we would bring our knowledge and experience of having worked with the county and the local area in Fort Worth, city of Fort Worth, to the project. We also have Multitech Engineering, who is a Tarrant County firm. They designed the James Bowie High School for us, and they're currently working on projects with us with Fort Worth ISD. So we have a good working relationship with them. They're an excellent firm. They are a minority-owned business. Al Sines, the president of the company, is here with us today. If you have any questions of their firm during the question and answer period. Also, Renata L. Wood Associates is a structural engineer here in Tarrant County. She designed the parking garage for your new family law court building, just east of the Family Law Center. She's been in business some nearly 20 years and is a woman-owned business. And Renata is here today in case you have any questions of the structural engineer during the Q&A session. HDR. They've been here in Texas since 1964, and again, I think the key thing is that their justice practice has been based in Dallas since 1975. So the people that are actually experts in court design are actually close at hand. They also have 2 Fort Worth offices. They've designed or planned over 60 court projects, and that includes some 11 million square feet of court or related spaces. Plus, they've been doing courts here in Texas since 1984. Much of their business is repeat or referral, which is a testimony to the quality of their service. And, really, at this point, LBL, highly recommends HDR as the prime architect because of not only their vast court experience, but the fact that they're close at hand.
What is the picture in that particular slide?
Thank you for asking, Judge.
I believe that's Laredo.
That's the rotunda in Laredo.
It's really
U.S. Court, yeah. With that, I'll give you Halden.
Thank you, Michael. Judge Whitley, Commissioners. I'm Halden Talley with HDR Architecture, and I'll serve as the project manager on the project. I want to make just a couple of points about our team, because I want you to be able to hear from Rob and Kurt. But first of all, here are all the people on our team. You have this information, and you have resumes of these people. I want to introduce a couple of them that are here with us today. John Neeson is a registered architect. He's listed as interior designer, but he has focused experience in course design. He also is involved in the programming aspect of the project. And Rob West, who's our lead designer, and Kurt Pardee, who's the director of our civic program in the Dallas office. Kurt will be talking more about lead and energy efficient design in a moment. These are four recent projects that I've led as project manager, and that's from the programming and concept design on through the later phases of the project. Particularly on the Ellis County project, a unique aspect about that was that it's being done in downtown Waxahachie, where a historic context is very important. The city has appointed a citizens review board there to make sure and to review the actual architecture to make sure that it fits in with the context of their downtown. And we incorporated or started working with them very early in the process, and basically partnered with them so just to make sure we understood what their issues were. And when we actually did go for the vote and the approval, which was required for this project to move forward, the project was approved unanimously. The Denton County project, that project is consolidating 17 departments on a new site on Loop 288 in Denton. And a unique feature of that project is that it is LEED certified. It's a priority of the commissioners that this project move forward as an energy efficient project. And a 43-acre site, multiple buildings will all be a minimum LEED silver rating. Other projects similar in size and complexity. The significant thing about these are, and the Houston County, and please excuse my pronunciation of that, but in Perry, Georgia, if you come in and say Houston, they send you back home. That's Houston in Georgia. But both of these projects were bid successfully within the available funds and on schedule. The Lee County project was actually ahead of schedule. Let me forward you on now. I'd like you to listen to Rob West, our lead designer.
Good afternoon. My name is Rob West. I'm Director of Court Design for HDR, and we have a group of specialists in Dallas that some of my colleagues have mentioned. We travel around the country. We spend our careers doing courts, and it's sort of nice, I must say, for the opportunity. One of the reasons we're excited about this possibility is instead of getting on an airplane to go visit our clients for once, we could get in a car. And you know how wonderful it is flying these days, and it's getting better all the time, isn't it? In any event, we have a matrix here that just show a few of our projects that relate to the particular scope that you're asking us for, starting with the programming. These happen to be some projects that we have done in Texas and around the country, even internationally, where we did all the programming. We moved into site analysis, selection, did the design of the buildings, and we've also indicated those which are in highly urban settings, similar to the Tarrant County Civil Court project. I would also say that working with county commissions and judges over the years, usually we're being called in a crisis mode. I mean, their facilities are stressed and scattered around the city, and I think many of them would be envious of what you've already done here in Fort Worth. I've been watching it for years, and you've got a wonderful beginning of a complex, and the opportunity to add to that is truly an exciting project. Let me see. Down is forward. Good. I'm intentionally going to focus a little more on the pragmatic aspects of court planning and design, because that's the scope of what you're asking us for initially, even though some of the more exciting parts, granted, are when it becomes architecture at the end. But I'd like to just start by just talking a little bit about some of the issues that we anticipate meeting as we move forward with this project. And as one of the nice things about a project that you have set it up this way, that you've called for a programmer and a planner to look at the project very logically, and that may even lead directly then into the design of the building. The advantage of that, in my experience, is that there's then this seamless progression of data from the very beginnings of just talking to the judges and the county about how things should be organized, all the way through to the execution of the project. And in our case, we would provide all of those services in-house. After that programming and during that programming study, at the end of the day, we would have a very clear understanding of how your system's going to grow, the kind of spaces that need to be required. We would understand intimately how the courts operate. And although we've been involved in dozens of courts around the country and in Texas, each court is unique. And this is a very important step because even the county next door to Tarrant County is going to have differences in the way they operate.
Oh, yeah.
So that's very critical. We would also then, armed with that understanding, begin to look at the site and how this building needs to be organized as far as vehicular and pedestrian access, how it fits into your complex of facilities here, and how the building itself needs to be organized both internally and externally to begin to set the standard for the project. All of that would need to be done in the context of good security planning, and I'm going to speak a little more about that, as well as the technology that's just exploding in courts. We're also very big believers in planning buildings and sites that are very flexible over time. These things change. We've all seen it in our lives. You know, what you think you're going to need to the greatest detail, 5 years later, you're changing things. And so we've learned to build flexibility and expansion right into the project. And finally, all of that sort of culminates in building a mass and a form that, although internally generated, needs to fit into and become an admirable addition to what you've already set in motion. I'm just going to quickly run through a couple of projects that we've done more recently. This happens to be the second largest courthouse in the world that we just finished in Calgary, Alberta. And I must say, you know, spending my life doing courts, when you go overseas, although their system's very similar, the differences really catch you and keep you alert. It was a great learning experience. This happens to be a fully integrated, actually it's 2 towers on either side of a full-height atrium, if you can imagine. This is quite the icon in the city, and it fronts on a new plaza that we put across the street. This project is probably the most technologically sophisticated in North America. And in the lower left-hand corner is a picture of a mega courtroom that, in this particular case, was the largest I've ever been involved with. There were over 24 attorney tables, for example.
Please go back.
Sure.
I gather that they have multiple jurists.
Meaning the judges?
Yes.
We set this up for a lot of flexibility, and one of the things we wanted was, first of all, it was set up for civil trials with a single presiding judge. However, flexibility is a big advantage, and you have a good eye because you see 5 chairs up on the dais. This was indeed set up also to handle Court of Appeals. So on the occasion when there's a large appellate case that would go to their Court of Appeal, this would be the room. It was the biggest in the province of Alberta for a fairly rare instance, but again, it works fine with 1 judge, but it can handle as many as 5 or even 7.
The larger picture to the right.
Now that's a different...
How many judges sit up there?
This is what they called the ceremonial courtroom. Now, and I actually went to the grand opening here. It was unbelievable. They had bagpipes and drums come in, and all the judges, and there were 70 judges filed in their full regalia, up, you know, the robes, and it was really magnificent. And they all sat there. We sat 40 of them up in that dais up there, as well as they sat in the jury box, and the premier was there. It was really quite the event. They do these sorts of ceremonies like investitures and some other things, and they'll use this courtroom for that. But it's also set up for a single judge to do a trial. So but this was their grand ceremonial. A lot of 73 courtrooms. One was the ceremonial. A little different. It's Canada. What can I say? They know how to say Houston up there. It is different. This happens to be the Laredo project. You mentioned at that opening slide the picture of the rotunda. This is now the rotunda viewed from the outside. This, by the way, was the first courthouse done after Oklahoma City, the big tragedy, if you recall. And I spent a lot of time in Washington working with the Marshal Service to develop whole new standards on how to design for security in the context of terrorism. Now, At the same token, the big goal here was, yes, we need to protect our justice system and every citizen coming to it. At the same time, we don't want it to look like a bunker. We're not Nazis. We want this to be an American courthouse that's open and balanced. And I think we did a nice job here. This balances the subtleties of ballards and things you might see in the foreground would stop a tank, but it doesn't look this way. It's very open, inviting. It brings you up into a courtyard and then into the rotunda. So it was just a different lesson that we learned about the security and yet the design aspects of what we do. My colleague Halden mentioned that we're working currently in Waxahachie. That was a very interesting exercise in trying to fit into a very strong historical context. One of the things I wanted to mention, though, although we've been involved in over 1,000 courtroom designs, every time we do a project, we do a full-scale mock-up. And so that, in fact, when we proposed this down there, one of the commissioners said to us that, well, wait a minute, HDR, they knew us. You've done all these courtrooms. What do you need to do this for? It isn't for us. It's for the court and for the commissioners and for the bar and for everyone to come and sit and really make sure, for the cost of a couple $1,000s before we spend millions, let's make sure it's right. So this is just one of the many things that we have found is just a great tool to make sure that we proceed. And I'm just going to page through. This is a large courthouse in Charlotte that's just recently opened and is winning design awards. Sort of proud of. It's another very large project in Fairfax, Virginia, near Washington. Another shot of it. One of the interesting things here is there's a courtyard on the right that is a secure environment, so people can go outside without having to go through metal detectors and all that sort of business. It's sort of a nice concept. This is a project we did some years ago in Austin, one that recently opened in Shreveport or near Shreveport, Bossier Parish. Years ago, we did the Frank Crowley Courts building in Dallas, Houston County again. How am I doing for time? Am I out? I'll wrap it up. Kansas. Just a couple things I wanted to note here as far as issues. Unique to a civil court, again, I would like to stress this technology infrastructure that we build into the court, whether it's for evidence display systems or teleconferencing. It is really making courts more efficient and a lot more complex as far as the technology. The mega courtrooms, I mentioned, this is again the one in Calgary. I think I would stress this flexibility question. All of the millwork up there, except for the judge's bench, is movable. Everything can be shifted around and changed overnight for a completely different arrangement should the bar or the court need to. And with that, Kurt?
Rob, do you do the main design, you yourself, on these projects?
I do indeed. In fact, I also do the programming and planning. I, again, have found that I do each better. Every time I do a design, I do more for the next program and vice versa. So, yeah, I do it all.
Thank you.
I'm glad you didn't spend much time on the Crowley Courts building in Dallas.
It's not my favorite either.
It's one of the worst-looking public buildings I've ever seen.
Well, sorry. In my defense on that one, I'll say I did the programming. I didn't do the outside.
All right, thanks, Rob. My name is Kurt Pardee, and I'll be responsible for the quality control, quality assurance on this project, as well as sustainability and incorporating that into the building. In terms of quality control, really, quality control is about communication. We really feel and know it's important as we work with you on a project that we have to communicate with you. We need to understand what your needs are and what you want in the facility so that in the end you get the facility that you want. We also integrate the mechanical and electrical and structural and civil engineering components into the project very early because we know that if we understand the systems that you want in the project that will work for this project, we can make sure we get money allocated for those systems in the project budget. We know you have a specific project budget for the project and you can't go over that. So we want to make sure as we begin developing the project, we understand what level of systems we have in this building to make sure that we have enough money in the end to make them happen the way you want them to. We really focus on teaming relationships as we begin working on the project, developing working closely with your people and our design team and the contractor and the CM at risk in this case to make sure that everyone understands, what the project scope is and where we're going with the project. A little bit about LEED. HDR has an enormous amount of experience in sustainability design, incorporating that into projects. We were the first AE firm in the nation to join the USGBC. We have 65 LEED projects currently registered with the USGBC. 18 of those have become certified. One of the projects I've worked on and very proud of is the McKinney Green Building in McKinney, Texas. It's a LEED Platinum building. It was the first LEED Platinum building in the state. It's an office building. It's incorporated an enormous amount of energy conservation features, water conservation features, materials and resources, construction, waste management. There's so much we did on that project. It's a platinum building, so it's way above and beyond what you typically do, but it just gives you an example of the kind of experience we have. We have staff on the National USGBC Council as well as the North Texas Council of the USGBC. We currently have 4 county court projects that we're working on that are looking to attain some level of LEED certification. So we know how to work the sustainability into a court building.
Eric, could I ask you a question?
Sure.
What was the cost premium for a platinum LEED certified building?
It was pretty significant, and one of the reasons it was significant is that it was about three and 4 years ago when we first started construction, and at that time, not a lot of sustainability had been done in the state. So as we put the project out to bid, there were a lot of eyebrows being raised, about concerns about, what are you requiring us to do? I think these days there's a lot less increase in cost, but at that time, I will tell you, it was about 40% of an increase to do the LEED Platinum facility. Now, that facility was designed to use 60% less energy, 40% less water. There are a lot of major sustainable components incorporated into it, so that made a big difference.
In doing a LEED building, do you see any problem when you're trying to complement a 113-year-old courthouse across the street and still maintain some architecture that complements that building and achieve what you're trying to achieve? Do you see a conflict?
I don't see, sir, I don't see a conflict at all. Sustainability, energy efficiency, for instance, it's all about the equipment you put in your building and to make sure you get the most efficient chillers and the most efficient fan motors, efficient lighting systems, saving water with new plumbing fixtures. There's so many things you can do that don't have an impact on the architectural nature of the building. So you can make it look like, whatever you want it to look like. So,
how much of that is, once you get it in there, how much of your savings is then dependent upon how well you've trained the people who are managing the building?
That's very important, and the LEED program requires that we develop a measurement and verification plan for you so that when we hand the building over to the building owner, we help train, and also there's a commissioning agent involved, and he helps train your building facilities people so they understand all of these key components that are there to save you energy and water. Obviously, it would be silly to put all those things and new technologies in your building if you didn't really understand how to keep them operating, as efficiently as possible. So that's part of the program, is to make sure that happens.
Mr. Phillips, I'm going to ask you in a minute what the utility cost is to our Family Law Center. So have you prepared after their 20-minute project?
Utility cost?
Okay. In closing, one last slide for y'all. We want to just demonstrate, I think we've shown you we're a local Texas team. Everyone here in the room with our team today is from North Texas. This is our community, and we're really excited about the possibility of working with you on this new facility. We have national expertise with Rob, and what's that do for you? It provides you state-of-the-art design and state-of-the-art facilities so that when you move in, you know you're getting the very best. Halden showed you a lot of recent similar project experience. We've done similar facilities in size and scope and type of facility, so we understand a lot of the types of things that you're going to run into as we continue into the programming phase and the design phase. And we're set to make sure we don't set up roadblocks for us further down the road. We have a lot of experience in working with CM at risk. We're currently working with several around the country, and we understand that being involved with them early in the process, we can take advantage of that. They can help us price things out. As we look at sustainable components, or as we look at design features in the building, we want to communicate with them so that the whole team understands what we're looking for so that we can get the most for your dollar. And last of all, commitment. HDR has been in business over 90 years, and I will say we're extremely excited about the possibility of working with LBL Architects. When we looked at this project, we wanted to make sure we had someone on our team who had worked with Tarrant County successfully on some recent projects, and they have, and you've got a great example of that courthouse that's in that third photo over there. And we're just really excited. They have the same culture as us, hard work, communication. And so we're looking forward at the possibility of working with them. That's it for the presentation. Ready for questions?
Questions?
Thank you.
Have you built anything in the very unique environment that downtown Fort Worth is?
Rob, you want to? You probably ought to all come up here. Probably all, but you can take.
Well, of course, each city is unique, but I would say the majority of the courts we've done have been right in the center of the city. I showed you the Calgary one, for example. I've done major courthouses in Orlando, Palm Beach, Grand Junction, Colorado, Boise, Idaho, that are right in the center of the city. So I can say absolutely. It's rare, actually, that courts are not downtown. Some of them have been more small towns like Waxahachie, but we've also done them in major cities, yes.
Anything? Any other questions?
I want to compliment y'all on wearing name tags where your names are big enough that us vision challenge can read them from here.
I know what you mean.
Nice point.
I can read yours very well, too. That's very helpful.
Anything else?
Are we all?
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you back.
Thank you.
Bill 35?
Do we have more than 2 minutes?
Yeah, you got 3.
Really? Sure. Did you give this back? Did you give this back to me?
She did. I don't know. I guess, did he not sign someplace?
We're live.
Did I
Did he
sign
not, or does
something?
he just need to take that? I think that's your, yeah, I gave it to him.
Yeah, I already signed it.
No problem.
Go.
Take off.
Ready? Judge, Commissioners of the Court, I'd like to thank you on behalf of HOK and HKS for this opportunity to be here this afternoon to present our credentials to you. My name is Bill Prindle. I'll be the principal in charge for HOK. John Richardson will be my counterpart principal in charge at HKS. Yeah. You might wonder why HOK and HKS are teamed together on this project. Well, it's quite simple. First of all, we've had a long history of teaming together on projects, and as a matter of fact, we have several ongoing right now. And secondly, we actually like working with each other, which is important. And but then the third real reason here is when you take the combined experience and resources of HOK and HKS, put them together and bring them together on one project, it's unbeatable in terms of the skills and the people and the processes we'll bring to bear on this project. So with that, I'd like to be very short here and introduce Kirk Milligan, which you've probably met before, and he will lead our team through the balance of our presentation.
Well, thank you. I'm Kirk Milliken, and I will be your project manager for the Civil Courts project. I want to introduce the team that is here with us today. You've met Bill and John. We have Steve Janeway, our design director, Duncan Broyd, who is our justice planner, Alice Painter with Carter Goebel Lee for programming. You all are very familiar with Carter Goebel Lee. They've done quite a bit of work here at the county. Also, we have Renee Avila with Jasper Cantanilla, Rudy Garcia with Lopez Garcia Group, who will be our civil engineer, and also Brian Richards with the Summit Group, who will be our consulting MEP engineer. Of course, Lopez Garcia and the Summit Group, along with Jasper Cantanilla and HKS and HOK, we all have a long working relationship. Bill talked about HOK's and HKS's relationship. We've worked with all of these prime consultants previously on substantial projects here in the city. So we're very familiar with each other. We know how we work together and how we will hit the ground running on your project.
You understand, we can't see any of these people.
They're all hiding
behind these towers.
That's right. Commissioner, what you mentioned earlier, we were thanked for putting these up so that you would not be seeing GK during this presentation. So
there are trade-offs.
There are trade-offs, yes. What we're going to go through, I'm going to talk quickly about our experience, qualifications, our project management. Then Alice will talk about some of the programming issues, followed by Duncan on the court planning. And finally, Steve Janeway will be talking about the architecture and the urban context of the facility within downtown Fort Worth. We have successful mid-rise urban experience. We have major downtown experience, probably between HOK and HKS, either together or separately. We've done more projects in downtown Fort Worth than any other firm. Certainly HKS's Radio Shack headquarters, their work on Bass Hall, HOK's work at the Convention Center, and also with the new Omni Hotel downtown, which is topping out tomorrow, by the way. So we have been here in the city and in Tarrant County for a very long time. HKS's premier county project, which HOK is very disappointed, but they're designing the Cowboy Stadium out in Arlington. HOK has over 103 major design awards in the last 10 years. That's more design awards than the next two firms put together. On all of our projects, we will be, and particularly on this project, we will be meeting and exceeding the county's hub participation requirements. We typically, on projects, exceed hub participation by up to 10%. At DFW, we exceeded it by 10%. For the city of Dallas and for UT, we exceeded it by 18%. So we have a proven track record in providing this. Between the two firms, we have over 800 Texas employees, and here in Tarrant County, we have 73 Tarrant County residents. The design process It must be interactive and inclusive. We'll be coming back to you on a regular basis and also working with the advisory committee. I think you have done an excellent job in selecting D. Kelly to head that committee. He's going to do a fantastic job for you. We must realize that the project will function as a courts facility, and it must be a good neighbor, and it must meet the interests of the Bass family, the city, as well as the county's urban campus. And we'll be working with all of those. We've done quite a few projects that have gone through the city's design review board, and I sit on the city's design review board. Regarding sustainability, we are committed to sustainability, and this is just not a buzzword. HOK and HKS have been at the forefront of this movement since the early 1990s, and it's just simply not going for the lead points, but it's incorporating sustainability into all of our projects. We have over 825 lead professionals. My partner Bill is LEED certified. I'm LEED certified. Duncan is LEED certified. Currently, Steve and I have 2 projects which will be gold certified projects. The HKS facility at Radio Shack was LEED silver. Most recently, we were ranked, HOK in June was ranked by Engineering News Record magazine as the #1 sustainable design firm in the country. Regarding sustainability, the HOK Guidebook to Sustainable Design has been classified as the definitive resource. It's now in second printing. It's used by professionals and universities as the definitive resource. What we use to minimize risk, senior principal involvement throughout. I'm going to be here from day one through the closeout of the project and post-occupancy. Steve, Duncan, John, the entire team. So the good news is we'll be here all the way through. The bad news is we'll be here all the way through. We will be working in the downtown, HKS's downtown Fort Worth design studio. We will have extensive community outreach and presentations to the community as well as to Commissioner's Court. One of the tools that we use for that is BIM, Building Information Modeling, or Revit. It's the next generation in computer-aided design where we actually build the building three-dimensionally in the computer. And what that enables us to do is provide up-to-date information to you, the client, and to the construction manager at risk, and to the community. This is an example up here of the Revit model for the Omni Hotel, which at the time was one of the largest projects ever undertaken by anyone with the Revit program. So we're all adept to using that. It becomes a great tool for communicating with the construction manager at risk. We are comfortable with working with construction managers at risk. We have probably worked with all of the firms that you will be considering for the CM position, so we know them and we will be working with them. We'll be working with them on day one in developing the cost model, which will be updated continually through all phases of the project, beginning with programming. And speaking of programming, Alice?
Yes. Good afternoon. I'm Alice Painter with Carter Gibble Lee, and what I bring to the project is operational focus. I've worked in the court system for a number of years, so I sort of start the project. One of the things we'll need to look at is evaluating, perhaps updating the projections. It's probably been some time with the county population growing and filing judgeship numbers and staff numbers. So what we'll do is we'll work with the advisory committee, with the district court, the county court at law, and the clerks, and work with them on how best to locate them to this new civil courthouse. And so I look at myself as sort of the liaison between the courthouse user, knowing what goes on in the courts, and with the architects. And I will develop projections as well as a detailed space program for all the spaces that go into this. And this operational focus will translate into an effective design. So it's my job to make sure these guys follow the program in their design. And so having the operational focus, being at the front end, and I'll be in along through the design process, through design review, making sure it corresponds to the program that I develop. And I'll turn this over to Duncan.
Good afternoon. I'm Duncan Broyd. I consider myself one of the lucky people at HOK in that I get to do what I want to do and I enjoy, which is courthouses. For the last 18 years, that's pretty much all I've worked on. We've never come across a county that has more money than they need to build a courthouse. So precisely what Alice said about the program and fitting that to a budget and how you use your money most wisely is probably the thing I worked the hardest on at the beginning of the project. Taking all those spreadsheets and turning them into options, analyzing them, especially in a scenario where you've got multiple buildings in your courts and justice system. We just finished a project at Manatee County in Florida, here, where there was a historic courthouse across the street that was very unsafe, very overcrowded, and we had to look at all the options for who did we move, which parts of the courts did we move, which type of courtrooms, how many of the judges, how much of the clerk's operation, and went through a whole series of options and presentations. Just like you and your advisory committee, we worked very closely with them, but we were always coming back to the county commission because at the end of the day, you're paying the bill to make decisions about how to proceed. So taking those spreadsheets and turning them into viable options to consider, we believe you'll get a better project. You're going to be considering how you may grow over the next 10, 20, 30 years. If we can make decisions in the design that allow you to expand or reallocate space as you go forward, if we do that on day one, it's money well spent. It'll never be cheaper than the first time you build it. One thing I'd just like to point out within these courthouses projects, a courtroom mock-up. Courtroom furniture, the millwork is probably the most expensive part of the building. You get that wrong, and a judge walks in and says he can't see the clerk, he can't see the witness, it could cost a great deal of money. We always recommend building one of these mock-ups. As you can see, plastic and plywood in a warehouse probably costs $20,000, $25,000, could save hundreds of thousands of dollars during construction. It also gets great buy-in from all the users. They're not going to walk into a brand new courtroom and say, who made this decision? Why is it like this? This is the chief juvenile judge, the court administrator, the client, all participating. Private bar association. It's a very good process to get buy-in. The neat thing about courthouses is that even though all the pieces are basically the same wherever we go, how they go together is different. Your culture, your personality, your budget, the goals you're trying to meet. So I get really actively involved in the design with Steve and with Alice and with Kirk, who's pushing the budget and the schedule to make sure that you get the best that you can get.
Thanks, Duncan. Good morning, good afternoon. Great civic buildings transcend just the program that they house. They have a greater responsibility than just that. Duncan speaks very eloquently about what goes on inside the building, but the outside of the building has an important responsibility as well. Most people believe that responsibility starts with the urban context that it fits in, looking at the other buildings that are in the fabric. And here are some of the notable examples of that from Fort Worth. But actually, in many cases, that responsibility starts well before that. It almost starts at a 30,000-foot view of the city itself. And I'm sorry, I speak better with my hands more often than I do with words, but this is a simple diagram of Fort Worth and how the city of Fort Worth works. I'm going to hand this up here so that you can see it more easily. But we've been very involved in the southern portion of the city over the last several years, working with the convention center hotels, and the things that are happening here, Sundance Square and the civic plazas that happen to the north. What this does, this creates a dumbbell scheme of the city, which feeds this sort of commercial core that happens right in the center. Understanding that responsibility in creating good quality buildings which anchor the north and the south of the urban fabric of Fort Worth, I think is very important. And then going much further and beginning to look at the analysis of the relationships of those buildings, and most particularly this courthouse square that happens here to the north, its link across the river, the traffic flows that come in and out at the north of the city and from the south of the city and how they move through the fabric is very important. And then finally, you start to look at the relationship between the buildings that create the fabric at this end of town. The Family Law Center is certainly a great example of a building which pays attention to this context. And the existing Tarrant County Courthouse is a great example of just heroic architecture that anchors a city. But connecting the fabric between these things is critically important. And you can begin to look at a diagram here, and just a quick sketch of what that fabric might actually accomplish. And you can see that by extending out, this photograph here in the upper right is the existing current condition of the blocks just across the street from the Family Law Center. I think this project has a responsibility to go beyond just the boundaries of the building itself and begin to craft great urban space, great urban fabric that is frankly the connective tissue between all of these civic buildings, from the Tarrant County Courthouse, the Family Law Building, the new courts facility that we're here to speak about today, and the other civic facilities that are all in this general neighborhood. That starts with looking at street sections, street trees, looking at a park. I believe very importantly there needs to be a strong civic green space there that is the anchor of the center of this plaza. Could have a piece of sculpture at the center of it, but it needs to have trees, lush green trees that create shaded areas for people to have lunch and hang out in the grass and sort of have civic life that activates all the building edges and all the sort of fabric of this portion of the city. Views back to the river from there, which I think are very important. There are some dissenting voices in the works in terms of the buildings that the colleges have started across the street. Dissenting voices can be good as long as they're of a good quality construction, and I believe those buildings probably will be. So I think all of those things can work in concert together to really frame an effective fabric, an effective space, because at the end of the day, it's not just a building that we're designing here. We're designing a sense of place. We're designing a place for a city and where people actually congregate and conduct some very important civic affairs, and they need to do it in a place of honor and respect and dignity that really represents the city of Fort Worth. I think that would be our vision for what this project should truly try to accomplish. That may mean that we need to go outside the boundaries in some degree, begin to establish the vision for these other elements, the street surfaces, the paving of those street surfaces to slow the traffic down, the character of the sidewalks, the trees, even establish a vision for the park that wants to be at the center of this. It doesn't have to be accomplished within the confines of this project and this project budget, but it puts a stake in the ground which sets an expectation for everything that comes after that. I think that's a very important first step to be able to accomplish. The old building actually has some interesting aspects to it. These Art Deco angels, I think one or two could be preserved, actually be taken off the building in pieces and preserved and made as part of an interior space in the new building, because they're 50 feet tall, so you could create a daylight atrium that's at the center of the new building, flood daylight into the interior spaces, and let the angels actually anchor, certain facades of that. They become really public artifacts. They're vestiges of history that will otherwise be thrown away unless you capture them and you put them to good use in the new facility. That has a cost that comes with it, but I think it's a very important endeavor to be able to hang on to these vestiges, these pieces of history, and be able to capture them for the pride of the city. So, all of that being said, I think there's a lot of great work to be done here, and there's a lot of good examples of great work that have come before that. My favorite one in this list is Paul Crete's U.S. Courthouse, United States Courthouse right there. He was a mentor to Lou Kahn, and he really believed strongly in the Beaux-Arts style, but he didn't replicate it. He didn't follow it, just literally. He recreated it in his own language. And I think to some degree that's what this building wants to be. It doesn't want to be a mirror of the Family Arts Center. It doesn't want to just be the continuation of that simple language. It wants to be an extension of that. It really needs to be an evolutionary step in the language of Fort Worth civic architecture. So, that being said, I think that there's a great project here, and we really look forward and we're excited about the potential to be able to design this piece of civic architecture.
Thank you. Okay. That's our presentation. Ready for question and answer, and would like to, at the end of Q&A, have 15, 20 seconds to wrap up.
Actually,
Please.
we'd love to take the 3.5 minutes we get. Do the summary.
Project manager to count the minutes.
Yeah, I know that. He's pressing me too.
Questions?
I like your idea about the angels.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, either that or we could put the styrofoam up over the precast concrete and put the angels on the...
Better yet, I think we can leave the styrofoam there and just take the good parts.
What kind of cost are you talking about moving the angels?
My understanding, and this came from a presentation of last week that the architect, doing the west facade of the courthouse, Art Weinman, gave to the Downtown Design Review Board. He said that there would be an ad alternate in the demolition package for the Civil Courts building to take the angels off and preserve them. And he felt that it would probably be $100,000 per angel.
And I think there are 4 or 5 of them up there, but you really don't need all of them. You only need maybe 1 or 2 of them to really preserve that piece of history.
So, again, there are a lot of opportunities as far as the Angels date back from the mid-1950s.
I think you mentioned to me that those are limestone?
Yes, sir, Indiana limestone.
They're what?
Indiana limestone. And they were modeled actually after a similar sculptures that are on the Los Angeles County courthouse. If you remember back in the black and white TVs of Dragnet.
Yes. Now that you say that, I do remember that. I'm sure Commissioner Johnson remembers it well.
Well, we seem to have.
He's only 40. That was well before he was
With
born.
30 years of experience.
I can remember Baby Snooks on the radio when we had no electricity.
We seem to have developed affinity for
You're exactly right. We do have an affinity for angels.
Any other questions at this time? Thank y'all. Thank y'all very much. Did you want to close, wrap up just a second?
Golly, yeah. I mean, we've got now 15 minutes. I think we could take on that.
That's all right.
I will not do
That's
that.
too much.
No, thank you. It's a privilege for HOK and HKS to be here. We're praying that three's a charm. But we're deeply committed to Tarrant County, and just want to review a couple of key things that Steve, Duncan, Alice brought out. We want to help you figure out the most economical and effective way to do court. That's Alice's role. Alice and Duncan work together in looking at the numbers. How do we effectively organize these courts floors, whether they're collegial, whether they're individual, etc. We want to open the book for the committee to be able to make legitimate recommendations to y'all, because we so focus on the dollars for the capital construction. That's 15% or less of the life cycle cost. You all have to fund these courts every year, and it's probably 85+% of the cost of those facilities. The fabric of the county, the fabric of the city, as Steve was talking about, are very critical here. This is the fabric and is going to really set the entryway to the northeastern part of Fort Worth. We would love to work with you to create an overriding vision, an urban fabric plan for this part of the city anchored by the county's facilities. And a lot of it is control of land. You control some of it, but how could we even expand possibly to looking at consolidation of lease space? Don't know. In other facilities that are adjacent to, tangential to what we're talking about. The architecture itself needs to be complementary, yet different. Taking a next step, as Steve said, but we can't ever forget the reflection of the heritage. We're listeners. We're ideally problem seekers to help you identify problems and challenges before they get there, so this becomes a very great planning effort on the part of the county, because there will be legacies of other 30 years of experience that come into play, and this needs to be viewed as a commissioner's court that made some great, sound, long-term financial decisions. That's where the value comes with the HOK, HKS team. The experience that you see are projects done by the team who's pictured up there. We believe we bring you that depth of experience and ability to listen to create space that performs well for the county. It would be a privilege to work with y'all on this job, and we'd ask for your votes. And again, thank you so very much for allowing us to be here, and I think that we gave you 7 minutes back.
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank y'all.
And we will appreciate it.
With 2 or 3 minutes, that's 10 minutes.
So we're going to start the next one at 1:15.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank y'all very much.
Yeah.
It'll take us 7 minutes to take all this stuff down.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Got home at 2:30.
I think we have to start planning on the criminal.
Keep it going.
I'm going to probably catch heck for this, but go ahead.
I'd like to introduce Chuck Nixon, principal of the Jacobs.
Okay. No, Jacob's got
Well, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We want to thank you on behalf of our team, allowing us to take your valuable time and make our presentation to you. I'm going to just quickly introduce the team here, and then we'll move right on. To my right, David Andrews with PGAL Architects, and behind me, Gary Ryan, the Jacobs project manager for this project, and I'm Chuck Nixon. We will begin, and we have a PowerPoint to go through, and we'll keep it to the 20 minutes and welcome your questions as we go through. To begin, we're going to tell you about who we are briefly. We're going to talk to you about our team, our experience, and then our approach to courts facilities, and certainly have the Q&A session. Let me speak briefly about Jacobs. Most of you formerly know us as Carter & Burgess, and we were purchased by the Jacobs Corporation back in November, and it's an international consulting firm. It's added additional strength and resources to our firm, and it's been a happy marriage. The particular division that we work with is 2,500 staff across the United States, of which you can see there's 728 right here in Fort Worth in our building right downtown, 5 blocks away. Our firm has courts design experience. We have more than 6 years working with Tarrant County, and you'll see in a few moments how we have also worked with PGL Group. I didn't put it on here, but I wanted to mention also that we've got 46 lead accredited professionals in the overall green building design, and we're going to talk about that some more. PGAL, a firm that was established in 1946, been in the Dallas Irving area for 25 years, has an office in Houston and other offices, as you can see, across the nation. Have won over 500 awards for design excellence, and an honor that is rarely given through our professional organization, the American Institute of Architects, awarded them the 2006 Firm of the Year. They have 26 accredited professionals in lead and currently have 15 projects underway. But of importance to you, I believe, is that they are nationally recognized with courthouse expertise, and in the last 10 years have designed over 5 million square feet of courthouse space, 500 courtrooms, and 5 of those projects have been featured in Justice Facilities Review. I'm not going to try to cover this complete chart with you, but I wanted to point out that the 3 of us up at the top in red, our responsibilities and roles. I am the principal in charge for the firm, and I will be the person who would monitor this job throughout and be responsible to you to deliver all of the services. Gary Ryan, I mentioned, is our project manager, very familiar with the county and working hard with David Phillips and his staff on a number of projects. And then David Andrews, who you'll hear from in a moment, is the design principal and will lead the effort for PGAL. The rest of those people are our technical folks that will support the team. I do want to point out that we have a number of historically underutilized businesses there, and in particular, these are the firms that we would bring to the team. We've worked with all of them. We're currently doing projects with them, and we have formed very successful partnerships. The project management process, I'm going to let Gary talk to you about that.
Okay. Jacobs, we have a very highly developed project management process that facilitates our programming, design, and technical production efforts, and it's the key to providing successful projects to our clients. As a project manager, my job is to facilitate communication between the county and our team and within the team itself. And this is vital to keeping the project on track and making sure that we deliver a project that's moving constantly in the right direction. We have a number of tools available to us at Carter Burgess. At Jacobs, sorry. It's a recent change. One of those is resource-loaded scheduling. We use that to manage our resources and workflow so that we can have projects adequately staffed. Another tool that we use is called a basis of design document. We dovetail that with the program, the architectural program, to communicate the the county-specific requirements to the design team. And then we monitor implementation of all that information through a very detailed quality control review process at the end of each stage of the work. Jacobs provides training to all of our project managers, designers, technical staff in the use of these tools so that we're prepared to provide the quality of service that you expect.
Down there.
Down there. Okay. The programming process is key to setting the direction of the building's design, and it's critical to the project's success. Programming is done with the overall goal of defining the challenges that must be overcome in the project's design and of stating those clearly to the design team. So if we understand what we're trying to solve, we can do that better. At the key project milestones, such as the end of design, schematic design, we'll review the project with the users and the county's advisory committee to assure that the project's moving in the right direction. And we'll work with the CM at risk as the project documentation is under development to help him see what's not shown yet on the documents. A key to this is, as the CM is developing his estimates throughout the process, a lot of times he can't see everything that's in our minds. It's not yet on the documents, so we like to have these meetings with him to go over the documents with our design team, with his contractors, and get all the information out of the designers' heads onto paper, in discussion, documented so that they understand what it is they're pricing. Because a big risk to the project is that the CM doesn't understand the full scope of what we're designing at the stage that he's at. So we want to avoid late surprises of cost overruns. Construction administration services, we provide the normal architectural and engineering services to assure that the design intent is carried out in the field and to help solve issues that arise during the construction process. Our primary goal is your project success, and we're also that you're satisfied with our service. We've done this for David Phillips and his facilities management team in the past. We're eager to serve you on this new courts facility project coming up. And with our office location only 5 blocks down the street, we're confident that we can provide the level of service that you expect. Thank you.
I'm going to talk to you about our experience. Start with the experience that we have working together, both Jacobs and PGAL, which is on some of the biggest court facilities that we've worked on. We've worked together with them, so our relationship with them is very good. This is our Harris County Civil Court project, which is about 660,000 square feet. Different scale than what we're talking about with you, but it is a all civil court facility. So we really understand the differences between multi-jurisdictional and or criminal-only courts, so that we can bring that experience to bear here.
What was the approximate cost per square foot on that, do you recall?
It was. It's been up for a while, so the cost hasn't been inflated, but it was about $160 a square foot, I think, something like that. But again, that was
prior to the last couple of years.
Yeah, and we hit the market just right. We were very fortunate on that, and hopefully we'll do the same here. But the thing about this court, which is you'll see in it's kind of a theme in all our courts, is we really look at the surroundings, the environment that's there, and design for that. This is one of 4 court buildings for Harris County that create a court plaza. This is on one side, criminal courts, which you'll see in a minute, is on the other. A juvenile court building is on the other side, and a soon-to-be designed family court building makes the fourth side of creating this nice downtown plaza yet to be installed. But the materials here are very consistent with what we find in courts. This is a precast because of the size of the building, but we used a pink Texas granite aggregate that we used a heavy sandblast on to expose it to get that color. And then our courtrooms are very well designed, a lot of wood in there, but not so much that we create some sound problems. And these courts happen to have windows in them, which is sometimes that's a requisite, sometimes not. And they work very well. Another Harris County project we're working on is the renovation of our old 1910 courthouse there, which has really helped us understand the detailing of both the old courtroom there and the building itself. So it helps us understand how to bring that kind of quality of design detail into our current projects as well. And again, that's another project we're doing with Jacobs. The criminal courts building, which is still the largest county court facility in the country, I believe, we designed again with Jacobs, and all these have been award-winning projects. The lower image there is of a hearing room, not one of the courtrooms in that building. But this is a criminal-only courtroom, so we really understand how that process works as well if we get into that part of the program here. Our most current project we're working on with Jacobs is the Fort Bend County project. And this is an all-masonry project here in Fort Bend County. We're in the last stages of construction documents, and that we expect to start construction this fall and be completed in the fall of 2010. And we're maintaining about $210 a square foot there right now, and so we're very proud of that. And we need to get it started so we can maintain that, of course, with inflation. But the lower level here is actually the jury assembly room that's in as part of the program of that building. But a similar detailing will happen in the courtrooms for that project as well. Some additional experience that PGL brings, not working with Jacobs. Now, some of you may be familiar with our Collin County Courthouse, opened about a year ago. And they had chosen, again, in their environment there was to take that outside of downtown McKinney, out on, and you may know, out on Highway 75 out there. So the image and scale of that building needed to be designed to accommodate that. It has a kind of a freeway view, if you will, and so some of the architecture and the scale of that building had to be responsive to that. It's been well received for Collin County. They really enjoy the space. The lower image is the new courtroom there, which by their choice was a more modern-looking courtroom and less of a traditional. And it also was a corner bench, which we don't find a lot of judiciary that really like that, but they happen to, and so that's the way it was designed. All of these courtrooms are also kind of leading-edge technology, and with the kind of the John Madden ability to write on the screen and show up on the big screen and all that. And this probably is the most similar in scale and in relationship to your project, our St. Tammany Parish project in Covington, Louisiana, which had 14 courtrooms and also housed the district attorney's office and district clerks, and it was a multi-jurisdictional courts as well. So we had all the accommodations for prisoner staging and prisoner access to the courts. But it was in an old historic district for Covington, Louisiana, so that drove our design to a more conventional look, and really enjoyed it. Plus, we were able to accommodate a lot of the local products there. The brick here was actually a St. Joe molded brick, which is manufactured about 3 miles from our site, which made for good politics as well as a really nice-looking building. And the wood that we used here is a cypress wood, which is native to the Louisiana area. And it's really, unfortunately, the color doesn't really come out as well in its images that it really is. And that was a product that we brought from their old courtroom. And so we like to take a little bit of history with us, because we know we're not the first courtroom for any county or parish. This is a federal courthouse in Florida. And again, this is illustrated. We will design your project for you. This obviously is not right for downtown Fort Worth, but it's absolutely right for the East Coast, the Atlantic coast of Florida, and with the masonry construction and stucco images that they have there, this was absolutely the right thing to do there.
Just very quickly, I wanted to highlight some additional Jacobs experience, if I can get rid of that. Yeah. Let's try this. There we go. Just very quickly, the new U.S. Federal Courthouse in Las Cruces, New Mexico, Jacobs is doing, and about 230,000 square feet. It is an $85 million project, and it's under construction. Structure is up right now. The steel is almost completed. And we're doing that right out of here, out of downtown Fort Worth, and has 8 district courtrooms and then all of the marshals' facilities also. 2 other projects that Jacobs has worked on, in this case, Galveston County Justice Center. We were an advisor to the architect there and provided MEP engineering services. Again, a similar size to your project. And then finally, the U.S. Courthouse, we helped GSA value engineer that building because it came in 50% over the budget, and they asked us to help them determine how they could get the project back in budget, which we did, and then they let the original architect finish it after we had identified those items. David, do you want to quickly speak about this?
Both Jacobs and PGL are strong advocates of LEED design and have been since its inception. We have over 26 professionals in our group. They have 46 in theirs. We are currently designing our own corporate headquarters in Houston as a gold certified project. So we're really good advocates of LEED design. For the courthouse design, quickly there are a few things that are important to the design of a courthouse. And some of these are specific to the civil, and you can read those. But what we really like to do in our court facilities is one of the first things is take your advisory committee and whoever else needs to go, and we'll do a tour of existing court facilities, either that we've designed or that other people have found that are appropriate, and go and determine what was good, what was bad for each one of those, come back and we'll analyze those and use those to design your court facility. There's nothing like standing in an actual room and having that feel as opposed to trying to get a hold of a drawing and see what that really is going to be like. And then the second thing that's a little different from what a lot of people do is we would recommend, after we come up with that design, is that we actually build a mock-up of one of these courts, full scale. Maybe not completely finished up, more of a plywood, styrofoam kind of version of it, so we make sure the sight lines work. We make sure that the proportions of the room, the heights of everybody is appropriate. We've got enough seating for the voir dire and enough space out in the well area for all the litigants. And we found both of those two things really give us an edge on how to design courtrooms. We've taken a quick look at your site, and we're really excited about the opportunities that are there. We've quickly kind of sketched in a possibility for the a park area out in that land. I know you don't own that right now. We just took. It would be nice if it was there, and it would give a front yard to both the family law building and the new civil courts building, and extend the yard for the old courthouse. And when we, the next phase of the old court, when we tear down the faux building over there, it'll really give the old courthouse the kind of space that it really requires. And this, just to reiterate on those, our sensitivity to the courthouse and its impact on the design of the new civil, on the old courthouse and its impact on the design, and taking into consideration the detailing and the great work that was done on family law will also help impact our design as we move forward on this.
We're ready for questions.
Questions?
I like the plaza.
Well, we took some liberty there and decided to put a little playground in the middle of it, but we're trying to emphasize that.
I don't see a tunnel underneath Bell.
We didn't put that in.
We think it would be a great gift to downtown Fort Worth to have that plaza there. Obviously, that's something you don't own now, but it would be nice to have.
I like that word gift. Tell that to the.
We would try to help arrange that.
Well, you didn't show the building TCC's has built over there.
That's that hole right there.
That picture, as you can tell, is probably a year old and taken in the wintertime, but now that their buildings are up, we were down there this morning looking around. And
So you're not going to be trying to compliment that building?
No, sir.
Those don't seem to have the contextual design we're looking for here. Okay?
That's more of the backdrop for all the good work that you're doing on your side.
Any other questions at this time? Do y'all want to?
How would you try to tie all that in so that the east side of downtown has somewhat of a planned look?
Well, let me respond on something we did, and certainly, David, you would also respond. When we did the convention center at the other end of town, we did an enormous study of Fort Worth buildings, details, color, and tried to incorporate a little of all of that in the convention center. So it starts with a white brick and eventually changes to a reddish brick. And you stood back and looked at that whole building in its whole context, you could begin to see details of Fort Worth buildings that we may not have copied them exactly, but we tried to repeat them in the building. And I think a similar study ought to be done here to see how we could tie this building into contextually what's in downtown Fort Worth.
But to add on to that, I mean, I think they did a great job at the Family Law Building of tying in some of the materials and the detailing from the old courthouse into here. We would take that as a lessons learned, a good thing, lessons learned, and carry that over as best we can, and try to use the Tarrant County College District project as, again, more of a backdrop, not trying to incorporate it into what we're doing.
I'm particularly interested in mitigating the damage from that side of the street.
I'm not sure we could.
Yeah.
Well, we seriously, if I know there's a lot of dialogue going on about that block which you sold, and they purchased the land swap thing, but I think it behooves the county and the leadership at Tarrant County College and others who were involved to seriously talk about how that could remain open space, because I think.
Well, I mean, we have certain restrictions on what can happen there, regardless.
Okay.
But
They're in our deed restrictions, isn't that?
well, it's in their deed restrictions. They can't. Yeah, they can't. There is a very limited amount of building that they can do on that particular lot. But I still, and we've talked about this earlier. We would be very interested, I think, in discussing and plan to discuss with TCC the reacquisition of that space.
Make a lot of sense
from that standpoint.
Major water line there on the south side.
Well, and there's going to be a major power line in there someplace because we've got to get the power from the old courthouse. Excuse me. They have to get the power from the old courthouse to the block that we're talking about building our civil courts building, because that was part of the swap arrangement. In addition to the restrictions that nothing can go more than 35 feet above street level, nor can it be more than a 50 foot square building. So there's not going to be a whole lot put on that piece of land.
No, that's not much.
Above street level.
Right.
Limited commercial value, is what we call that.
That's right. There's not going to be too many developers ready to grab that piece of land for the condo effect.
I want to back up if I could. Doesn't have anything to do with the civil courts building, but I had a question, Gary, of the Harris County Criminal Courts building. And my ears perked up when you said 800 holding cells in that facility.
Yeah, that was David.
That's David. Yep.
Was it you?
Yes,
okay,
sir.
I thought it. How is that broken down? Is that by court, or you have?
Well, that's a total. We in the lowest level down there that is tied to with the tunnel to the jail. They have a staging area, which is almost half of those holding cells are down there. So they bring them all in the morning, stage them there, and then take them up. And then the other, there's I forget the count, but there's 40 or 50 holding cells that are shared by every pair of courts up through the building. And there's 45 courts. There's a lot of crime in Harris County, and this building, that's what it takes to take care of it.
Well, we're running into a similar problem down here in our criminal courts building, and when you said that, that's the reason it got my attention.
I mean, that's what it takes. You have to bring them in as a group in the morning. You stage them in the lower area and then take them up. All the multi-jurisdictional.
And we're talking about doing that in the jail. In fact, one of the things that we're looking at is that staging area. What used to be our old kitchen will probably be our new holding area for the jail from that standpoint.
But I think a couple of us might want to go down and visit that facility. I would like to see what it looks like.
I'd be glad to arrange that for you.
And Again, you said in your RFQ that you would want our team or the winning team to study the existing criminal courts building, and PGL folks have just a ton of experience on that side of the ledger, too.
That's a side issue, and I'm sorry.
No problem.
That's fine.
That's
I was going to add, all those multi-jurisdictional courts, the Collin County, the Fort Bend, and Covington, all have the same setup. There's a staging area for holding in the bottom, and then there's holding cells adjacent to every court as well. It's a nice setup, and it really makes things flow well during the day.
We tried to plan all that back in the early 80s or the mid-80s when we built this facility, but a lot of things have happened since
Didn't
then.
hire the right architect.
Any other questions? Thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Do you have any comments?
No.
Okay.
Judge, it was $500,000 a year for the utilities for the Family Law Center.
So if we were saving 40%, that'd be about $200,000 a year?
We will be saving 40% on all of those utilities, probably. 465 of that is for electricity. To give an example of what we've done for the...
Now, wait a minute.
It's for
You
what?
said you asked for utility.
It's $500,000 total and 465 of it's electrical?
Yes.
Good.
We have,
Okay.
for example, at the Southeast Sub, we're hopefully to save 20 to 21% of our electric bill over a normally designed building.
If we put a windmill on the top of the thing, we could save and do all
We
that.
could certainly do a
You
couple
try
of
to
windmills.
explain to me how it works.
Get rid of the pigeons. Get rid of the pigeons.
We had a hawk.
On next week's agenda, we will have the request permission to negotiate with a top-ranked firm. If you'll want to turn your rankings into GK sometime this week, that'd be just
And I guess the only other question that I've got of the court, and if, is with regards to, you mentioned earlier about the possibility of having the renovation of the criminal court facility in the same bid with the civil court. And I guess I think there's going to be some overlap. Are you at all concerned that the same folks who are going to be doing the civil court will still be doing the design, or we probably won't be doing the design, we should be in the construction phase, but I would assume that we're going to start the same advisory group, the same discussions with all the interested parties in the renovation of the criminal courts building prior to the time that the civil courts building is complete and going forward. So I'm a little nervous about bringing that all together, or I'd like to hear everybody's comments with regards to bringing that all together at one time.
Our focus on this project is the civil courts building, but I went ahead and structured the RFQ such and such a manner. It would give you options if you want to do it all now, or it's structured in such a manner that you could select one firm for the civil courts, then another firm for the Justice Center, if you'd like, or have one firm, or do neither. If you'd like to wait a couple of years and do another RFQ, we could do that too. So it's
Not that
structured.
I don't love doing this over and over again, but
What's the benefit of one firm doing both of those projects? They're not related.
Familiarity with the county and the needs, maybe during the pre-design effort, which would be the first phase, we would do a programming or a space needs assessment. They could go ahead and do the court, I guess the court system downtown in the courts district we have, and they could do it all at once.
What's the dollar price on the renovation of the criminal courts building?
I don't know that yet. I think what it would be, once we moved the civil courts out, we would consolidate the courts on the other floors, on separate floors, and do one floor at a time, most likely. I don't have a cost estimate on that. We would need to do some very serious programming and concepts.
Again, I don't know. My thought would be to do that as a separate project a little bit later on, even if we end up doing the same group, I think at least it may give us the opportunity to spread some work around a little bit as opposed to picking a firm and not having. I mean, it's going to be a fairly major project, would be my guess.
Yes, sir. Any renovation, especially in an operating building with 31 courtrooms, it'll be a significant project for us.
And I don't know that I see it.
I don't have a hard and fast opinion whether it ought to be the same firm or two different firms, but I think that the two projects should proceed on parallel tracks. To start one and tell the other that it has to wait a year or two is going to be a big problem.
Yeah, but we've got to get the civil courts out before we can start renovation down there.
The only reason...
Before we can start renovation, but not before we can start planning.
Yeah, but I mean, Roy, I understand what you're saying, but I guess my only thought about that is that if we begin the planning now, it's going to be a couple of years before we can actually start doing something. And I mean, I don't think it's going to be anything. It may only be a year before we start the planning on the criminal justice center. But if, you know, we're starting right now on something that we're going to start building maybe inside of a year, and it may be inside of 2 years before we get it. I don't know that I want to start planning on the criminal right now when I know it's going to be 3 years before we could even begin to let the first construction contract on doing the renovation. That's my only concern about waiting a little bit, is just, you know, maybe get the planning part. We may be in 1 year ready to start the planning part on the criminal courts. But that's my only thought. And I'm really kind of concerned about doing both of them at the same time and maybe even having the same firm trying to do that. I mean, we had 5 good firms here today who I think are all pretty familiar with Fort Worth and the downtown area, and could go from there.
Well, I just don't believe that.
Yours bad isn't up here anymore. You got a luck, brother.
I don't believe that the needs of that criminal courts building are going to change over time. They're going to be the same in 5 years that they are now, because the deficiencies are the same and will be the same. So I don't see any reason to put off planning to a later date.
Thank you.
So what's he going to do?
That's something we're going to vote up or down, I would assume.
Well, I understand that. I guess that I don't know that we need to wait too long before we vote it up or down, because I think once we give him our I guess when we come back and vote to approve whatever our choices are, then at that point in time we need to be prepared to tell him whether or not to seriously go ahead and try to negotiate both of them at the same time.
Yeah, you can basically, at that time, you can determine what the scope, or at least start identifying the parameters of the scope.
Because I don't think we've ever said go that we haven't ended up with whatever firm we said to go with. And so I think if we say go and do both of them, then that's what's going to happen. So I would suggest that we be ready to make that decision
next Tuesday.
As soon as you can get it on the agenda.
Which will be next Tuesday.
Want our test of it.
So either turn these in today or before next Tuesday. Do you have a clean copy since I've written all over this one? We're not going to turn them in today. You can turn them in whenever you want to.
Yes, you can turn them in today.
You can come get mine if you can find me.
There being no more business? Looks like it's a true statement. We're adjourned.
Oh, we actually adjourned, Jerry?
Good. Things are well. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why you haven't heard from me.